Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It is Monday, the 19th of January, and apparently we're on the brink of World War III. But don't worry, there's plenty of other reasons to be upset because it's Blue Monday. Obviously, we're not on the brink of World War III, and I'm going to be having a bit of a go at the mainstream media who seem to be trying to urge us ever closer to some kind of massive conflict with President Donald Trump in the United States, which seems entirely ridiculous over a patch of land, as you say, that you wouldn't let a dog loose on in Greenland. 56,000 people, the largest island in the entire world, and not much else going on, to be honest. But anyway, we'll get back to that. Emma Wolf joins me this morning on this beautiful Monday morning. Emma, very good to see you. Thank you very much for being here. Lots of you have got much to say. The big breaking news really this morning is that we've got voice notes for the first time ever on this show. You've been asking for them. We have now delivered them for you. We'll be telling you how to get in touch. What we want to do is hear from as many of you as possible. Please keep those voice notes to less than 30 seconds because if you do them longer than 30 seconds, they won't get played. Here's what you do. Go to speakpipe.com/voice notes. That's speakpipe.com/voice notes. We'll be telling you how to do it on Twitter. We'll be telling you how to do it on Facebook. We'll be telling you how to do it on the YouTube link as well, on the chat room. Lots of you are already getting in touch. So, obviously, like everything else that we do on this show, it is a bit of experimental this morning. So if it doesn't work out quite as well as you ought to think it should, don't worry. Just complain in the usual way. We'll be handing out, as usual, pedant of the day to anybody who wants to complain about what they don't like about the show. Also, we've got plank of the day, which might be going to a former member of the royal family today. And also we'll run you through all the hideous front pages this morning. In addition to that, we've got a poll on how you deal with Blue Monday, how you manage to get Blue Monday out of your brain and you don't feel too miserable. The reason, of course, they say it's Blue Monday is because after you've kind of had the excitement of New Year, you've gone back to work and sort of dealt with it. After 2 weeks, you realise you've spent all your money and you've still got 2 weeks to go until the end of the month. That's why it's Blue Monday. I don't feel like Blue Monday. That's why I'm wearing a red tie. I didn't. The sign is blue, obviously, but I'm not. You're not blue, Emma. You look pretty happy this morning.
No, I thought of Blue Monday. I know there's Divorce Day, right? Divorce Day is the first Monday.
I've already done that.
Divorce Day.
I got that out of the way early.
Yeah,
2 years ago.
I never went there. Divorce Day is the first Monday in January, January the 5th, when you launch.
Yeah.
When I think everybody has just got through Christmas. They can't stand their partner anymore. And they contact lawyers, and that's apparently when they see a big spike in divorces.
Right.
But I thought last Monday, the 12th, I thought that was a pretty bleak Monday.
Right.
Although it's never bleak on the Mike Graham Show.
That's
but
true.
Anyway, apparently it's the third, yeah, you're right, it's the third Monday in January.
Okay.
When the credit card bills come home to roost, all of that stuff after Christmas, and there's still 70 million days to go of January.
Yes, and it's dark
and
it's
tax
cold.
returns, I've done mine,
done
mine, I'm early, I'm freelance, done it. But
do you know,
that's
I had
the
a breakthrough
other thing in January.
I had a massive breakthrough over the weekend because I was explaining to somebody last week that I was trying to access my own tax account and I couldn't remember the bleeding, the one-time use only government gateway thing. Yeah. I managed to find it. I managed to actually find I'd written it down somewhere and saved it, so I actually managed to get in. Hasn't helped me not paying tax.
Say.
But at least it's something. But I'll tell you what has been really grinding my gears actually over the weekend, and it's the relentlessness of the kind of mainstream media's attachment to this Donald Trump story, because you and I both know Donald Trump is a very gregarious character. He likes to, push buttons over here, pull levers over there. Yeah. He likes to get his own way. He has many different ways of doing so, right? And it seems to me that, all of this sort of, rhetoric about how we're in a downward spiral, that Keir Starmer was worried about a trade war, that people are concerned that Donald Trump wants to start World War III. I mean, I'm sorry, it's all BS, isn't it?
I think it's BS. I don't think the tariffs will even come into effect. We've still got 2 weeks, so 1st of February would be when they came into effect.
Yeah.
That seems very, very unlikely to happen. He's threatened punishment tariffs before, which haven't actually occurred. So I think that is a big possibility. I think he likes to, is it provocation? Is he bluffing? Is he just maybe trying to get a bit more money out of NATO, which, fair enough, they owe?
Yeah. Well, I was listening to a Danish journalist who seems to be a lot more kind of smart than some of the British journalists we've got working for us at the moment over here. And he was basically saying, look, what Donald Trump wants is to get closer to 5% of GDP for every European country to put into NATO as their defence spending, right? And this could be part of that plan.
And this isn't a surprise. He's been talking about the fact that other countries need to cough up, that the the US cannot be the defence, the defenders of the world.
Right.
He's been talking about this for decades, in fact.
Exactly.
So it's not a surprise. I'm not defending what he does. I think that this is a kind of a misstep because all it does is give fuel to people saying, he's a dictator, he's crazy, he's a bully, all of this. But I mean, he's getting people to the table.
But at the end of the day, he gets people to talk about things.
Yes.
I mean, until this moment, until this latest sort of Greenland, conflagration, I don't think I've ever mentioned Greenland in a conversation once. Apart from when you get asked that question in Trivial Pursuit, does Denmark have any mountains, right?
Yeah.
And when you know that Denmark as a country doesn't, but it owns Greenland, which does, that's the answer. But that's the only reference ever I've made to Greenland in my life.
I didn't even know that, and I think many of us have become Greenland experts over the past week. I think there's enough going on that he didn't actually need to start this, flag waving about Greenland. But, what's this ridiculousness about NATO heading for disaster, the fact that, this idea that we're on the brink of World War III. What is the worst that could happen? Okay, we'll have to cough up a bit more. Yeah, we've already wasted billions abroad. I'm not actually that bothered about the idea of 6 billion on them or on us. Well,
but the idea that the European Union is going to somehow go to war with America. I mean, have you seen what they did, for example? We're going to talk to Will Geddes about this when he's back from his holidays. But when they went into Venezuela, do you know, I don't know if you read any of the accounts of what actually happened, but when the Black Hawks and the Delta Force went in, they actually had weapons that nobody's ever seen before. I mean, they've got weapons that can blow you away without shooting you. They've got, audio weapons.
Evaporate people, literally, incinerate people.
They've got the kind of weaponry that no other country in the world has got, right? Exactly. Apart from possibly China. I mean, the idea that, one bloke from kind of the Coldstream Guards is going to wander in, or, half a dozen Dutch.
We have got one guy there.
Yeah, one guy there.
That's good.
And so once again, Starmer has made a complete dog's arse of it, to be frank. And, the idea that they're briefing out overnight, oh yes, Donald Trump and Sir Keir Starmer had a conversation last night and Keir told him he was wrong.
Wrong.
Are you sure?
Do you know what?
Are you really sure? Is that what he really said?
They would have put out footage. They would have put out some kind of evidence of that call if it had been anything kind of masterful on Starmer's part. Someone asked me over the weekend, what does Starmer think about this? And I said, I don't think he has an opinion.
No.
He doesn't know what he thinks about anything.
Right.
He came out with something. I mean, at least, I don't like Macron, but at least he's kind of came out a bit more bullish than that. Starmer doesn't even know.
Did you see that ridiculous video, actually? We probably haven't got it because I didn't warn them enough ahead of time, but ridiculous video of Macron actually walking through a group of French army officers and troops, and behind them, I presume a Mirage jet, which is, quite handy looking, but, it's one jet, and there's about 50 guys, and Macron, tiny pint-sized Prime Minister, President of France. And people in America were just laughing at it.
As if Trump is meant to be terrified. Well, what's been coming out of America, they really, I think this is the obvious end of the special relationship. There is no special relationship.
Well, let's have a look at some of the headlines coming up here. We've got NATO heading for disaster on the front page of the Daily Mail. Prime Minister warns Trump of downward spiral in the Times, because they're the most friendly paper to the Labour government. Trade war looms with America, the I newspaper. Trump's Greenland blackmail, Daily Mirror. Fears Trump's tariffs will rip NATO apart, says the Express. And then the Financial Times, which of course is very much on the side of the European Union. EU primes 93 billion euro worth of tariffs on Trump. I mean, it's almost as if they're willing there to be some kind of massive problem.
Yeah, this trade bazooka that we're going to hit America with. Absolutely ridiculous. And it's being, as you say, inflated and ramped up to kind of hysterical proportions.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just talk then.
Exactly, because we've also got Davos begins today. Donald Trump is going to Davos. I listened, as I say, to a fairly sensible Danish journalist this morning on the way into work. Who was saying, look, Trump always wants something at the end of the day. He takes a position which is sometimes more extreme than what he actually wants to get at the end. And that's exactly what's playing out, the same as it plays out every other time. And I don't understand why the mainstream media don't seem to want to understand that. But they all suffer, don't they, from Trump derangement syndrome?
Of course, Trump derangement syndrome. It's the art of the deal. You go in, you slam down your demand for 10 billion, you walk out. Then you come back and then people agree to 7 billion or whatever it is.
Exactly.
It's called being a businessman.
And I mean, even some people in America are falling for it, saying, he's gone too far this time, he needs to rein it in, we don't want to go to war with Europe. Nobody's going to bloody war with Europe. It's not going to happen.
Of course it's not going to happen.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Lots of you getting in touch. Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister, declared during his historic visit to Beijing, says Canastria, that the progress made in Canada-China relations sets both nations up well for the new world order. Well, that's ridiculous. Minky says, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another crazy week. Thank you, Mike, for bringing some common sense to this platform. Chewy says there is also the rare earth minerals, which are seldom mentioned. The US and Denmark will both come to a beneficial agreement. And Lynn says Starmer is just a puppet. Absolutely right. I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? We've got, of course, the ability to read out some super chats, so do get those in for us as well. Along the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to see all of the news that we're going to be reporting on this morning, including this. Angela Rayner delayed the Chinese embassy project after getting a call from the Trump administration. I mean, one of the things that people raised at the weekend over China, for example, they're worried about Donald Trump and Greenland. Yeah. But meanwhile, we're doing business with China. Keir Starmer's going to China, and we've got a massive Chinese embassy spy centre being built in London.
This is far more, I'm so glad you raised that. This is far more alarming in the whole prism of the Greenland situation. At least Trump is trying to stand up to China and Russia, by the way, and sort that out. We, meanwhile, are letting a Chinese embassy, and we don't even know what is going on in there. They've got secret vaults, secret basements, undisclosed rooms that they're built in the heart.
Well, that's what they're saying it could be.
In the heart of London. And there were some big protests this weekend. It's about 10 minutes from where I live, on the edge of the city. And it's very, very alarming. And we have been, as you say, kowtowing to trying to do it both ways. Is what Starmer wants to do. And it's a pathetic look from our government.
It really is, because you can't, in the end, you cannot rule by weakness, which is what Starmer is. Starmer is completely and utterly weak, completely and utterly hopeless, and his international kind of nous is worse than my dogs, for example. I put Ziggy in charge of foreign relations. He'd do a better job than this guy. I mean, it really is literally ridiculous. And also, the idea that the European Union is going to threaten America with tariffs. Trump said the last time around, if you remember, we don't sell anything to Europe. One of the reasons he was putting tariffs on the EU was he's like, they don't buy American cars. Exactly. They buy a lot of European cars, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Jaguar Land Rover, Aston Martin, Bentley. There's many, many cars that get bought by Americans from Europe. Yes. But nobody in Europe buys an American car. So where's the danger?
Exactly. And meanwhile, this weekend, you talk about the weakness of Starmer. After a quite difficult few days for the Conservative Party and Reform, Starmer this weekend, it was all about, Darren Jones has been counter-briefing against Wes Streeting.
Oh, yeah.
And you think, oh, my goodness, this government actually couldn't organise a proverbial child's party in a soft play centre.
And did you see Lisa, who ate all the pies, Nandy, at the weekend, talking about how, the Farage government would be a fascist government.
Of course, fascist.
Yeah, of course. That the Reform Party is a fascist party. Sorry, excuse me, can you remind me again, who's not having elections? Who's cancelling elections on a daily basis? Who's deciding that, you won't be able to use your mobile phone when you want to use it? Exactly. Who's threatening to shut down social media because they don't like Elon Musk? These are fascist acts. These are not the acts of a democratic government,
and if that's the best they can do is send out Lisa, who ate all the pies, Nandy, for the weekend rounds. That was a pretty poor showing, wasn't it?
Exactly right. Let's have a look at actually Lisa Nandy, because she was out and about doing the rounds yesterday on behalf of the government. Here she is.
You scolded me for asking you to reveal private discussions. Well, this is a straightforward discussion. Would you actually use the word fascist about a Nigel Farage-led government or not?
Well, look, I'm not sure that labels are particularly helpful, but like I said, I've got a lot of experience of dealing...
You're not saying no?
Living with the consequence... Well, I've got a lot of experience of living with the consequences of othering and people who are trying to divide us from one another. And I guess I would just say that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, in my experience, it usually is a duck.
So it walks like a duck, or it talks like a duck. It's a fascist, in fact. I'll tell you what's really funny, right, is I went to Wigan once, right? I haven't been there many times, but I was talking to Pooch earlier on about, taking dogs on holiday. We once took Ziggy up to Scotland, and we stopped, and the halfway mark between the sort of Sussex and Scotland was around about St Helens, right? Yeah. And St Helens, Wigan, is basically Lisa Nandy's constituency. Yeah. I have never seen a worse place in the world than Wigan, right? We took the dog out there was a sort of recreation ground, and we thought, well, we'll take Ziggy for a walk out of the car before we get to the hotel. I've never seen so many needles on the ground. I've never seen so many hapless-looking youth. There were kids smoking joints, looked about 11, sitting on swings. I mean, it was destitute, it was ghastly, it was horrible. She and the Labour government have betrayed so many parts of this country, which they've been in charge of for decades, right? Same problem in Scotland, which is why they lost power to the SNP. Because the problem with Labour is they don't care about their own people.
No.
They take them for granted. They think, well, if I've got a working-class constituency like Wigan, I won't ever have to do anything because they'll always vote Labour. Well, not anymore, sweetheart. Now they're going to vote Reform because they're sick to death of heroin needles on the floor, children being left and abandoned by the social services, and you not improving anybody's life in those parts of the world.
Exactly, and many of us Londoners feel the same about London. That you know the change to our city over the past few decades has been almost beyond words.
Yeah.
And you know, I know Sadiq Khan is not listening. I know he doesn't care.
No, he doesn't.
Really, the Labour government don't care.
No.
But then there she is calling Nigel Farage fascist because he doesn't agree with giving away, you know, socialists giving away other people's money.
Exactly right.
For nothing.
Nigel Farage once again dominating the airwaves, of course, since last Thursday, when it became clear that Robert Jenrick was being fired by Kemi Badenoch and has now joined Reform. Since then, of course, yesterday, just last night, Andrew Rossendale on the front page of the Telegraph, he's now become the 7th Reform MP. So they've gone from 4 to 7. In a very short space of time, right?
And we have a big Labour defection coming this week.
Yes.
Lots of names swirling
So we're
around.
told,
I think everybody seems to know who it is, but anyway, we'll see whether. But it's been absolutely. And I think overall that we can go into the weeds of how Jenrick did it and whether it was right or wrong and is he a complete and utter traitor. I don't think it matters.
No.
When you talk to people in general, what they see, Reform growing, 7 MPs from a standing start.
Yeah.
And huge popularity still for Nigel Farage. They don't actually care. People like Robert Jenrick have very little face recognition.
Yeah.
Most people in the street wouldn't be able to say, that's Robert Jenrick. He's not Tony Blair.
But this again
he's not known.
is again where the mainstream media falls down. You know, they go hours and hours and hours they spend on broadcast, in pieces written in newspapers about how, you know, the Tory party can now come out of this as a different, cleaner, greener party. And this is like, it's all rubbish. Nobody cares, right? Let's have a look at Robert Jenrick's Reform promo.
It's time for the truth. Those that came before us built a great country, but we are set to lose it. These people run Britain as if they hate it. But whilst this government is accelerating our decline, they didn't begin it. The Conservative Party betrayed its voters. They don't have the stomach for the radical change that Britain needs. Nigel was all too often a lone voice of common sense. They laughed at him. Well, they're not laughing now. I'm proud to join the more than 270,000 people who are members of Reform UK to join this incredible movement, a national movement that will pool Britain's talents, experience and expertise and deliver the real change we need. With Britain on the brink, in real danger, this is what we must do. Britain is broken. Britain needs reform. And reform needs you.
That is pretty slick stuff,
It is
isn't
slick.
it? I mean, they are very good at it, and they're much better at it than anybody else. Kemi Badenoch, of course, at the weekend came out and they said Britain isn't broken, and everyone went, "Huh? Sorry, where are you looking exactly?" Got a bit of a super chat coming up here. You can, of course, do that any time you want. This is from Astral Roblox. I bet Trump is now cowering and living in fear after Starmer's call. Yeah, anything he's living in fear of is he calls him back. You know, he has to talk to him again. You know, for heaven's sake.
I wondered, did he actually get through, or did he leave him a voice note? You're very wrong. You're a bad man, and you're very wrong.
To a Trump impersonator. Thank God for Mike and Emma on a Monday morning, says Gorilla Chops. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank God for Gorilla Chops.
What Andrew Rossendale said, basically, and this is a guy who's the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, right? So he's not small potatoes, and he's thought very highly of in the Conservative ranking party, right? So we'll see whether the Conservatives turn on him like they did on Jenrick. Remember when they just sort of basically peed all over him and just said he was a horrible bloke and good riddance, right? Yeah. He said he now believes the Conservative Party is irreparably bound to the mistakes of previous governments and is unwilling to take meaningful accountability for its record in office. And he said he's been forced to put country before party. Nigel Farage has welcomed Mr Rossendale as a great patriot who was tipped over the edge by Tory lies and hypocrisy over the Chagos Islands. And in fact, we haven't mentioned the Chagos Islands because I'm sick to death of seeing Starmer coming out and all sorts of Labour apparatchiks coming out and saying, Greenland is a decision for the people of Greenland and nobody else should make that decision. But Chagos?
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, and we're paying billions for the privilege. I mean, it's absolutely hypocrisy.
Right.
Is astounding, isn't it?
It really is. Absolutely incredible stuff. We've got lots to do, lots of other stories to talk about. Shall we mention on the front pages as well? Angela Rayner's back, right? No, sorry, not Angela Rayner. Rachel Reeves. Cost of the Chancellor's U-turns. Yeah. This is Rachel Reeves, Richard III, completely and utterly hopeless. Front page of the Times and the Telegraph. All of the U-turns that she made, and this doesn't even include the most recent two, which was, of course, farmers' inheritance tax. And what was the other one? I can't remember. But the two most recent ones. The pub business rates, right? Yeah. £8.2 billion. And one of the things that Starmer talks about Greenland is that, we'll end up paying more because of the tariffs. Well, we're already paying more because of this useless government.
Exactly. It's hard to quantify, actually, how damaging, economically, how damaging this woman has been for our economy. Yeah. Not just in terms of these flip-flopping U-turns, not just in terms of the money she's given away, the ineptitude, the incompetence of Rachel Reeves, who, did she mention, first female... really, it's astonishing. And then the U-turns, the cost of them,
Yeah, because they don't know what they're doing. So they come out with a plan, and then they work out that actually that's not going to work too well. And so they're having moved all of the civil service machinery over here, they have to bring it back here and then move it back over there.
And we're bleating about the fact that these tariffs from Trump, if they come into effect, might cost us $6 billion.
Yeah.
Well, she's wasting more than that, probably on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And it's not just that, Mike. It's the far, far more damaging, the punishment that she's inflicted upon small businesses up and down this country. It's the lack of confidence, the fact that we know businessmen who are leaving, investors who are leaving, not investing in this country, have no confidence in the UK.
No.
Don't want to, they cannot afford...
Because you can't trust the government.
You don't know what's coming down the line. You cannot afford to employ people in this country because of all these hikes that she's put on businesses, small businesses, pubs, hairdressers. We've all spoken to people who are literally trying to run a business in this country and just can't afford it under Labour.
Yeah, exactly. And they're either moving away or just shutting the business down.
Shutting the businesses down.
These figures, by the way, are calculated by the Office for Budget Responsibility. Yeah. So, they are official figures. Policy uncertainty, apparently, is at the highest level since 1997, when the index measuring began. This was almost certainly linked to the scale and frequency of fiscal interventions during this Parliament, according to the report. I've got one more super chat, which I didn't get to there. I'll just read it to you. In 1 second. This is from BGBG. Trading the caliphate of Europe for Greenland is a no-brainer. Greenland is a great deal for the USA. Well, I mean, again, until this moment, I don't think anybody had even given a second thought to Greenland and what it was for. But there are minerals there. It has got a potential for money for both the United States and for Europe. And of course, what I believe will happen is that Donald Trump will do a deal eventually, which is beneficial to everyone.
Exactly.
But what it won't be is beneficial to Russia and China and any other kind of, interests which would be counter to Western democracy.
And I admire the fact that he makes decisions. He says what he means and he means what he says.
Yeah.
And he takes decisions and then he acts. Whereas with NATO and with the UN, all we do is have these endless emergency summits. We've got another emergency statement. Apparently the Prime Minister has cleared his diary. He's going to say something pointless from Downing Street this morning.
Oh, yeah.
But we could spend years and decades having these Davos meetings, I know Davos is a slightly different thing, but it's these talking shops where they say and do nothing. They did nothing about Maduro for decades. Right. And the man was literally killing his own people, allegedly, killing his own people, destroying Venezuela. And then Trump goes in.
America.
Trump goes in, and yes, he circumvents a few international laws, and he gets things done.
Yeah. Except if you listen, yesterday morning on Laura Kunsberg, they had the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives on. Can't remember his name, but he was brilliant because he completely dissected every single argument that she had. Yeah. And she said to him, for example, how is it possible that, Donald Trump can just wander into another country, violate international law and arrest and kidnap a foreign leader? And this guy just said, well, first of all, it's got nothing to do with international law because he was wanted, having been charged by a Supreme Court
the US.
grand jury in the United States of America. He was a felon who needed to stand trial for crimes against America, nothing to do with international law. So he was arrested, as is the right of America's government to do, after having been asked to do so by the Drug Enforcement Association organisation.
So in fact, he wasn't.
So it was not a violation of international law at all.
No.
Right? And she just didn't have any answer for that, because that, of course, is the narrative that the Western media and the BBC in particular tries to pump out. That Trump is just a bully who goes around the world whacking people with a big stick. No, it was actually a very surgical move.
It was precision.
And it was very precise.
But it also, being a bully is somehow worse than being a murdering narco-terrorist who has literally raped and stripped his own country for decades. But also, I would say, I mean, you mentioned the Deputy Speaker. I would say that there are 10 or 20 people around Donald Trump, his top team, probably more, who every single one of them is more impressive and effective and eloquent and articulate and intelligent than any politician in Labour.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Every single one of them would be a better Prime Minister,
Yeah.
Marco Rubio, all of that lot,
Yeah.
better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer.
Yeah, and they've also got a much better military operation and military organisation.
Far
So,
better.
if anybody's going to start sending troops up to Greenland, good bleeding luck is what I would say. Now, a couple of things to organise and to mention to you, because there's new people joining every single moment. In addition to all of the headlines that we're doing this morning, we're introducing voice notes for the first time. So we're going to ask you to give it a go. It's not going to be easy because, of course, like everything else, when you're doing it for the first time, you have to just get your head around it and get used to it. But you'll be able to find out how to do it if you look on the YouTube chat. Also, you can find out on Twitter as well. We'll be telling you exactly how to get involved in it. But please keep your voice notes to less than 30 seconds. Keep them clean, because we don't want to get into any trouble. And just be nice. It is Blue Monday, so you can talk about Blue Monday if you wish. We've got a poll out asking you how you battle Blue Monday. I mean, I don't feel blue at all, apart from the sign, obviously, which is behind me, the Mike Graham Show. And also, if you remember, we had that great blue drink.
I was going to say, are you full of your blue champagne?
Yeah, something blue, the blue champagne. Amazing. Absolutely fantastic. Really good tasting stuff. So, basically, has Ayatollah Starmer offered Khomeini asylum yet? Says Walmartis. We've got this. Could someone tell me what a Walter Mitty is? I heard someone described as this, but I don't know what that means, says Michelle. Well, Walter Mitty, I'll let you answer
Well,
that.
it's like a hapless, isn't it? It's someone who sort of just wanders from one disaster to the next. And Walter Mitty. Walter Mitty was that great character in that film.
Yes.
Someone will correct me. And he was always getting into terrible disasters. Everything went wrong for Walter Mitty.
And he was always pretending to be somebody else as well, wasn't he? Wasn't that the point? Because somebody who calls themselves a Walter Mitty tends to be somebody who's got a kind of, rather higher than normal view of themselves. And so they kind of, like, for example, Keir Starmer likes to think of himself as a great statesman.
Yes.
That is a very Walter Mitty-esque trait, because he isn't a great statesman. Another super chat here from LTL. Lisa Nandy, already contender for Plank of the Week. Well, we've got quite a few, actually, has to be said. Farage getting in, Jenrick is keeping Zia useless out, says Penny for your thoughts. And this one from Paranormal, who says the NHS, to many people using it, it's not rocket science. Well, that was another thing I'm going to get to later in the show, because over the course of the weekend, yet another false claim by Labour that NHS waiting lists have gone down.
As you pointed out, it's because people have died.
Well, it's because people have either died off or because they've gone private.
Yeah.
And that's if, in fact, they're telling the truth about the numbers coming down. But absolutely incredible stuff. Let's talk about one of your favourite subjects, front page of the Times. Baroness Cass, apparently the paediatric doctor who led the damning review into NHS treatment of children with gender dysphoria, the Cass report, of course. She's going to spearhead an effort to ban under 16s from using social media. I know this is something you talk about a lot, Emma. Tell us.
I do. And I think this movement is gathering pace. Kemi Badenoch is massively behind the social media ban. So we're talking about social media ban, and I would say eventually maybe a smartphone ban for under 16s. There are 61 Labour MPs as well who've signed a letter in support of this. So I just think that of course, there are a million difficulties around this ban. How would it work? Would it be effective? People will circumvent it, all of that. But I think the movement and the awareness is gathering pace. There was a horrible report in the Sunday Times yesterday, or the Telegraph, I forget, about the sort of public health emergency. So there's a perspective of that. There's not just mental health, issues, anxiety, depression, ADHD, loneliness, all of that smartphones and social media cause young people, but the physical damage. Young girls turning up at A&E with knife wounds, dying from things like strangulation because they've seen, their boyfriends have seen sex acts online. So there's the physical side of it, there's the mental health side of it. I think there's movement and the desire amongst parents and teachers and even young people themselves. So I think we're moving towards potentially some kind of restriction, limitation or ban.
I mean, there are a lot of voices as well who say kids will always do things that kids do. Kids will always get involved in things. And, you know, I'm with you. I mean, some of the stuff that they can see on social media is horrific. Some of the things we can see on social media are horrific as well. But I'm not sure how easy it would be to ban it. You know, I said this at the end of last week. I happened to be standing at a bus stop. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week, just as the schools were kicking out. Every single kid from aged 11 to about 15 just were all on their phones, every single one of them, right? And I thought to myself, you know, you're going to tell these kids that they can't use their phones for accessing social media. I just don't really see it working.
No, I know, but in Australia in the last few weeks, millions of social media accounts have been cancelled, and that is pretty powerful. Young people in Australia have been talking about the relief that they feel because they're not allowed and they're not expected to be on social media.
Yes.
That's a really powerful thing. Of course, there are so many logistical, practical issues around this. You know, people will use their older siblings' devices. Of course they will. They'll invent passwords. They'll use VPNs. Lots and lots and lots of problems with it. But I think, look, it's all going to be waiting for them. When they get to 16, it's all you know, like the way we're all addicted to our phones.
Yes.
They can spend the rest of their lives staring at the blooming rectangular devices that we're all hooked on.
Yeah.
It's about giving them a childhood. It's about giving them some kind of life
but
where they're talking, where they're flirting, where they're snogging their friends in the park. They're not just staring at phones. They're talking.
But this is the thing, they're doing all of that as well, aren't they? And I wonder if...
Not really. They're not doing a lot of drinking and partying.
Aren't they?
Young people don't drink as much. Young people are having major problems with relationships. Young people are having major problems with loneliness and obesity. All of these things that used to be kind of adolescent things. Young children are, you know, absolutely addicted to smartphones.
And isn't it the parents, though, in the end, that have to make these decisions? Because we saw Kemi Badenoch talking about this like a week ago Sunday, that she said, you know, her own daughter is now old enough to have a phone, but she's going to be very careful about what she's able to do on that phone. Isn't it a parental thing rather than a governmental thing?
Well, of course, and it's the same thing with nutrition and same thing with obesity and same thing with everything. It's about, you know, why do we have young children turning up at school? They can't brush their teeth, they're still in nappies, all of that. It's about parental responsibility. But this helps parents. It gives them, at least it gives them, a very clear indication that social media is not safe for their children. And also it gives them, you know, the kind of legal backing behind it to say, sorry, it's not allowed. You know, there's nothing I can do about it. Because the pressure you feel, the constant pressure, especially with like young teenage children, to let them have a phone, to let them be on social media is, you know, is huge.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, we've been telling you that we got voice notes for the first time ever on the show. We've been going for 2 weeks, and I think, again, Pooch has pulled another rabbit out of the hat.
Absolutely.
Because he's managed to get the technology. Well, we're going to try and see if we've got a rabbit out of the hat. We've got technology. We have the technology. Here's what you do. You go to speakpipe.com/voice notes, and you send us a voice note. We've got one from Kevin. Let's have a listen.
Hi Mike, it's Kevin in South Staffordshire. Brilliant to see you and Emma putting the water right. Great to see you
no,
back on
we haven't got one from Kevin. Have we?
Onwards and upwards.
I'm not hearing it.
Okay.
I'm not hearing it. Is anybody else hearing it?
Yeah, it's done.
Oh, right. It apparently went out. Well, I didn't hear what it said. So, anyway, never mind. Well done, Kevin.
But
Thank you very much.
good point, Kevin.
Yeah, great point, Kevin. Tremendous. We'll have to, Pooch will sort it out so that I can actually hear it. Apologies. Maybe some of you can tell me what he said and put it on a tweet. Lisa Nandy is in a party who ducks and dives. Yeah, absolutely right. Here's one from Angela who says, hi, Mike and Emma. Reform are taking on a bunch of politicians who have already failed our great country. Yeah, well, some of them may well have been part of an organisation that failed a great country, but you might say that they personally did not. And I think, you know, what is now happening is you've got a Reform Party which is still very much leading in the polls, which is now 7 MPs instead of 5 or 4 or 6. So it's all got to be a good thing. Anna says, listening from Denmark, furious about Trump's threats towards Greenland and Denmark. We are NATO allies. The Conservatives and Reform were always on course to take chunks out of each other, says Michael. Now is the winter of our discontent, says Ian. Lots of people, of course, have got plenty to say about whether or not reform and the Tories should have some kind. I think it was Lord Hannan, Daniel Hannan, who wrote at the weekend saying, you know, the inevitability of some kind of a pact between the Conservatives and Reform is the only way to go to get success over the Labour government. You know, these arguments will go on forever. We'll get loads of people saying to us, why you keep supporting Reform when they've gone down the wrong road? Why don't you support Rupert Lowe? Why don't you support Ben Habib? You know, there's a movable feast going on constantly here, isn't there?
I know, and I just think we mustn't lose touch of how damaging the current government is for the country.
Yes.
You know, because this is a movement, yes, there's always that, you know, Rupert and Ben and sort of the right fracturing off and splitting, and they're all at war with each other. And I made the point on X, and lots of people pointed out, I said, you know, if Reform's just going to become a sort of washed up place for Conservative and Labour MPs, then what's new about it? Lots of people making the point that, you know, that they are still Conservative, but that the whole political landscape has changed, you know, the Overton window kind of idea, that actually we didn't change, the parties changed.
Yes.
And that, yes, Reform is going to be taking on MPs that we know of in you know, from past years, and that they will have said and done things and voted for things that we didn't agree with. But it is a new movement.
Yeah.
It is a new movement with a new leader. And yeah, there will be some, because they need ministerial expertise as well as all that.
Exactly right. And I think the point about, you know, being realistic, and I said this last week about, you know, the possibility of running a government, is that realistic and real politics refers for some people to have to just stop being quite so intransigent.
It's never going to be perfect.
It's never going to be perfect.
And do you
stop putting all your faith in politicians.
And do you prefer Starmer still in power after 2029 or not? Before you let me go, may I ask why I am being besieged by pictures of herons in my my personal account?
Yes.
People sending me pictures of herons.
Well,
I love
because
it.
we do Heron of the Day here, and I don't know if we've got one to play out already. Well, I'm not quite ready for it, but that's one that was sent in overnight, I think, to me. I can't remember who it was that sent it, but I'll find out in a minute and give them a big hello, because thank you very much indeed. And also, before I let you go, a couple of other funny stories to talk to you about. Thousands of bags of chips have washed up on the beach in Sussex. There's a fantastic picture. I don't know if we've got it. Basically, chips washing up near Eastbourne after several shipping containers containing food and packaging came ashore. I mean, it's literally chips all over the beach.
Yeah.
You've never seen anything like it. They're calling it a chipwreck.
A chipwreck.
It's not bad.
And also, Mike, they were uncooked chips.
Yeah.
They were from a container.
Yeah.
I was a bit suspicious. I wondered whether you and Ziggy had been overdoing it a bit when they said it was in Sussex, but no, it wasn't you.
Well, and as Charlotte pointed out, you know, there's no sign that says may contain fish, which is the other one. And the other one, talking about Ziggy.
Maybe hot.
Yeah, great piece in the Times where it says male hounds are better at a hangdog expression to get treats. This is certainly true of Ziggy. Apparently, male dogs' facial expressions change more than females do when they see something they love. According to a study, they showed a broader range of expressions that also carried on for much longer. And anyone who's got a dog knows that, you know, the look. I mean, I've found actually as Ziggy gets older, he's got even more expressions than he used to have. You know, and he's so manipulative now. You know, when the mother of my children was popping up for a birthday dinner the other day, he hates it when anybody goes out of the house, and so he was sick in the morning, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I said, and she's like, I can't go, he's sick. I'm like, no, he's deliberately being sick so you don't leave. You know, that's how manipulative the dog is.
That's very adorable.
Very funny. Anyway, Emma, listen, as ever, brilliant to see you. Thank you so much for popping in. Emma Wolf there with some great views and the great news that we've got this morning. So many of you taking part. You know, we've got many, many more people watching than any other breakfast show on the planet right now. We've got plenty more to talk about. Of course, we've got the news coming up as well. We'll tell you something about a couple of secrets about the news coming up this week as well. And also, voice notes. Do send them in. We'll try and figure out a way that I can hear them. Apparently, I'm told I was talking over the last one, so apologies. But do send them in, and we will put them together. Coming up later on, Sharon Davis is going to join us with her take on the Darlington women decision that was made over the weekend. And also, Mr. Pothole joins us for the after show today. So I've put a question out already for you on the Twitter account, which is @IROMG, saying if you've got any news you want to bring us about potholes in your neck of the woods, if you've got questions for Mr. Pothole, do send them in and we'll put them to him. That'll be after 9 o'clock today, right here on the home of common sense. So we'll be back after this.
Why don't you relax and be a bit more MG? That would be a triumph.
Yeah. So, now it's time for the news with Edward Hughes. But unfortunately, what I can tell you is that Edward Hughes isn't actually here today because he was spotted at the weekend down in southern climes. Look at this, he sent me this message. Cheers, Mike, living it large. Edward Hughes, we're obviously paying him too much money. Pooch, you don't have to get on top of that. As a result of which, Edward Hughes is absent for the day, and instead, Mrs. Hughes, Edwina, is here with the news.
Hello. Here is the news for Monday, the 19th January, with me, Edwina Hughes. Just before we go on, I'd like to say that I wholly support Eduardo's sudden trip to the Costa del Sol, and I'm not livid at all that he has not come back yet. Prime Minister Keir Starmer brands Donald Trump's threat of 10% tariffs on UK goods, aimed at forcing a Greenland deal, completely wrong. With the AU set to hold urgent talks, the biggest crisis in US-UK relations in years could hit British car makers and exporters hard.
Should we do the
Westminster
heron again?
Parliament returns with the House of Lords starting its week's business from the 19th to the 23rd, including scrutiny of the English devolution and community empowerment bill. Lazy buggers. Economically, markets brace for more fallout from the tariff threats amid ongoing weak growth warnings for 2026. While flash PMI data later this week will give the first read on January's business activity. Plus, Prince Harry's long-running tabloid trial continues to draw attention, and cold weather persists across much of the UK. That's your quick headlines roundup for Monday. I'm not Edward Hughes, nor will he be when I get hold of him.
Yeah, there's Edwina Hughes talking there about Edward Hughes, who's still away on the missing list. He's still on holiday, hasn't come back in time. Maybe his flight got delayed, who can say? Don't know. We'll bring you more on Edward Hughes' whereabouts as we go. Apparently people can hear me during the news, Pooch, again. Sorry about that. Listen, luckily I didn't say anything terrible. We're just trying to get as close as we can to authenticity in broadcasting so that you know what we talk about even when we're not on the air. Newsline up in Scotland, they've got Nigel Farage wants to axe Holyrood. I'm not sure if that's true. Chancellor's U-turns have cost us £8.2 billion so far. And councils, here's one that I think will wind a lot of people up. Councils that delayed votes coming up this year have put up council tax collectively to the tune of about £280 million, which I think is absolutely and utterly disgraceful. Now you have guests on the right. Why not have guest table turn 90% and have an L shape? Better feng shui, says John. The show is looking better every day. Good work. Thank you very much indeed. Except they're actually on the left, if you see what I mean. That's your left, not mine, because they're on my left, not on the right. But I see what you mean when you're looking. There's a reason why we haven't got an L-shaped desk, which I could go into if you want. But I think some of you might find it a bit pedant-like. But we will get there. With every day, we include different things. Like today, as I say, we have voice notes. If you want to send one in, send it to speakpipe.com. And I'll promise to shut up when it gets played and you won't be able to hear me talking over it. Other things that I want to talk about this morning, the NHS, of course, because it turns out that the government is claiming that NHS numbers have gone down. Waiting lists have actually gone down. That's what they're claiming. They say that they're at their lowest now for several years. But I put out a message at the weekend to suggest that actually more than likely the reason they've gone down is either because people have died waiting to be seen or they've just basically gone private. So I'm going to read you some of the responses that I got to that because at the end of the day, there's no question that the NHS is actually worse rather than better. There's no question that it's going better than it was. At the end of the day, we are stuck with a government that doesn't know how to fix the NHS. We are stuck with a government that really doesn't understand what to do about anything that is going wrong. And instead what they do is they just tell a load of lies to try and make everybody feel as though it's all better than it actually is. And quite frankly, it's ridiculous. The idea that you have been waiting for an opportunity to go and see a doctor or you've been waiting for an appointment, you know very well why it's not working. And we will tell you the same. I'm still trying to find some of these things here, but I really can't find them at the moment. I don't know why. But we'll get to it. Lots and lots of you have got things to say. Chip ahoy, says Lord Viking. Eduardo is missing in action and Mrs. Hughes is not amused. Oh, that's good, says Tony. Very good. This one from SH. What are you smoking, Emma? Kids are still drinking, partying, running riot, still dating, still experimenting, still have loads of friends. You're talking absolute rubbish. Well, this is because Emma has got a very strong view on young children under the age of 16 not using social media. She wants it to stop. I'm not sure you can stop it. Canastria says, pedant of the day, the clock is fast again by about 25 seconds. Is it? I had no idea. Absolutely ridiculous. What I should also tell you is that Plank of the Week is out there too. So if you haven't actually seen it yet, you can go out there and find it on our YouTube channel, which of course you can find any single moment of the day. Now, coming up, our first guest of the day, Sharon Davis, of course, a woman who has become renowned, not just for being an international superstar swimmer, but she's now an international superstar when it comes to women's rights, and she's been fighting for them for a very, very long time. And Sharon, I'm delighted to say, welcome to the Mike Graham Show, right here. Oh no, she's not here yet. Okay, we're running slightly late on a couple of things this morning. Instead, let's have a look at what we can do for you right here on the Mike Graham Show. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. So, we finally got it off the ground. We've been going for a little while now, and we're all delighted with the reception, with the audience, and with what you're saying to us about how much you're enjoying the Mike Graham Show every single weekday morning from 7 until 9 a.m. We've got Plank of the Day, which we bring in, of course. We're doing polls every day now as well. We've also got Pedant of the Day, which is awarded to anybody who comes in and gives us a bit of criticism for something they don't like, whether it's one of the bricks is out of place, whether they don't like the colour of the sign behind me, whether the Union Jack's a bit flaccid. You know, you never know what the complaint is, but you could be a winner of Pedant of the Week. Also, of course, we've got Heron of the Day as well, which is when you send in your lovely, beautiful pictures of those amazing birds, the herons, which bring us so much good luck and offer us so much goodwill. And don't forget, of course, as well, that we're still doing Plank of the Week. That goes out every Friday at 7 o'clock in the evening. And of course, every single weekday, we're doing a Substack after show for people who subscribe to our Substack. So if you want to stream the breakfast show live on Substack without any ads, you can do that, sign up and subscribe. You can also watch it on YouTube, of course, with ads or without ads on YouTube Premium. And the after show every single day also goes out on YouTube later on in the week. So we've got an awful lot going on. We obviously always want to hear from you, whatever your criticisms are, whatever your encouragements are, anything you think we should be doing that we're not doing. We're working on getting voice notes incorporated into the show. We're working on getting calls incorporated into the show as well. We're building a station here. We're building a channel which we hope you will enjoy for a very long time. And I'm delighted that you're on the journey with us. We are having a fabulous time working as independent producers of media. And who knows where it all goes, because what we can tell you is that just last month, YouTube overtook the BBC as the biggest source of news and information for the people of Great Britain. And that's what we're part of. So we'll see you soon. Have a great day. This is the Mike Graham Show. So much going on, of course. A couple of people asking if I'm wearing a Labour tie. You should know better than that. It is not. It is a red tie, but it is certainly not a Labour tie by any stretch of the imagination. But there is something weird going on with it as well. I'm not quite sure what to say about that, but we'll try and fix that. Lots going on. Let me go back to what I was saying about the NHS, because Keir Starmer put out this tweet back end of last week. Good news, he says, NHS waiting lists are down by more than 86,000 this month, the largest fall in a month for over 2 years. For too long, patients were promised change in the NHS, but saw little of it. My government is turning promises into change people can actually feel. Well, as I said, and as Emma spotted over the weekend, I put out they probably died off before they could be seen. And the point is, whether they died off or went and saw somebody privately, so many of you responded, and I've got so many of your responses here because I wanted to read them out over the course of the weekend. Sandy says, they probably did go private, like most of my friends have. Twins on a Bus says, the figures are manipulated across all trusts regularly. There is no fall in waiting lists at all. Again, Labour are lying to us. And Elizabeth says, folks are dying for lack of treatment. And then she attached a story that said GP practices are offered rewards for not referring patients to hospitals. And that is, again, a big problem. Ollie says this, there has been some meddling, like cataracts. Labour cataracts can now be bigger than Tory cataracts, apparently. A friend who was booked in was told he was coming off the list as they have reclassified the need to be removed. That's interesting. Jeep says the figures for those patients sent through the private sector need to be published. Myself and at least 2 friends all were put through it last year for hip, knee and shoulder surgeries, all paid for by the NHS. John says he might possibly be telling porkies. Just a thought. Well, this is the trouble with the Labour government, is they do tell lies quite frequently in order to make themselves look better than they are. Carrot says, in December, my appointment for March 26 was cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances. I've still not received a letter with the new appointment date as promised. How many more like me have dropped off the waiting list, helping to massage their faux figures? Exactly right. Phil says, I just don't believe it. You don't believe a word Keir Starmer says. Ian says, I've just moved to the West Midlands and needed to see an audiologist. It took 2 weeks for an appointment. I was told I needed new aids, then told there is a 6-month waiting list, and then added my tinnitus needs to be checked by ENT. First appointment available is January 2027. So, as I said, the bottom line is that the NHS is still failing. The NHS is not improving. And for Keir Starmer to disingenuously put out a tweet in which he says that waiting lists are falling for the biggest number in 2 years, it's simply not true. Little Gem says, my mother gave up on hers after it was booked and cancelled on the same day, both by post. She ended up going private. NHS waiting lists are now self-cleaning. Yes. Great says this, I had to have NHS treatment last year, a doctor's appointment in 2 days, consultant appointment in 2 weeks, treatment in 4 weeks, follow-up treatment in another 4 weeks. I checked with a private clinic, timescales were slightly quicker but similar. I would say that's a pretty good service. Really? So you had to have NHS treatment last year, you had an appointment in 2 days, and then another appointment in 2 weeks, treatment in 4 weeks, that's 6 weeks, 2 days, follow-up treatment another 4 weeks. Well, you might say that's okay, but it's not exactly brilliant, is it? Or, in the case of chronic conditions, says Ron, they're being taken off the list and then they have to make an appointment at a later date that then adds them to the list again. Well, I've been saying this for donkey's years, is that what they're actually doing inside of the Labour government now and inside of the NHS is they're moving everybody around to make it look as if they're actually more efficient than they really are, because they're absolutely not. Pete says, people are just being deleted from the system for people to just have to start all over again. That's another thing that they're doing. Recently, I had a text, says Sue, asking me if I still needed treatment after 12 weeks waiting. The target was up. Having been assessed, I could now be moved to an internal waiting list, thus reducing an external waiting list, massaging the figures to keep funds. They don't meet targets if funds get reduced. It's a common practice. I know. It's just listening of this goes on and on and on. Jack says this, the reduction is more likely due to being removed from the list through failing to respond in time to the myriad text reminding one that the list is very, very long. So would one like to remain on it? Well, we know about all of these ridiculous situations, right? So do keep in touch with us. Do let us know precisely what's happening inside of the NHS, because we always do have interest in the NHS and how it's running, particularly when the government comes out and makes out that they know what it is that they're doing, because they really don't. We've got a super chat, I think, coming up that we can read to you. Do keep sending those to us. This is from Fizzy Red. What's happening with your car stickers, Mike? Well, we're in the process of getting the car stickers organised, Fizzy Red. Thank you very much for asking. We're hoping to have an entire sort of Mike Graham Show store coming up where you can tell us what exactly it is you want. We're going to have bumper stickers, we're going to have hats, we're going to have T-shirts, we're going to have mugs, very possibly. We might even have the odd umbrella, if you'd like one. Tommy says this, hi Mike, I had a GP phone appointment last week. The advice I was given was to go private as I'd wait too long to be seen on the NHS. Well, I think that's the advice that most people get, because the problem is the NHS is simply not fit for purpose. Panda says this, reform can't win. Many say they don't have experienced people to form a government. When they do, they are becoming Tory O2. Well, the trouble is with all of this, and we will talk about this, I'm sure, from now and certainly until May, when the local elections take place, there are going to be loads and loads of people who want reform to be a completely different political party, who want reform to be like the outliers. You know, now that may well be possible, or it may not. The bottom line for me is that the best chance of getting rid of the Labour government right now is not the Conservatives and is not Rupert Lowe or Ben Habib, it is reform. Now, you might not like the way that Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib were treated by reform. You might think that they were treated badly. But the point is, the bottom line is, if you want to get rid of Labour government, you've got to look at the realistic choice of what's in front of you. And the realistic choice of what's in front of you is that reform have the biggest chance of winning. And sometimes, when you have a team that you want to be a winning team, you have people in that winning team that you might not like. And I think we have to be reasonably intelligent about it, and we have to be reasonably well thought through about it. You know, you cannot always get exactly what you want. Let's have a look at what Robert Jenrick has to say about all of it.
I have chosen, and I think millions of other people will do in the years ahead, to put long-standing party allegiance to one side. In my case, to put personal ambition to one side, and to put the country first.
Other people would say you've done the very reverse of putting personal ambition aside. You've done the opposite. You've joined the party that is ahead in the polls precisely because of your own personal ambitions.
I don't think anyone could seriously make that argument.
No?
I woke up yesterday as the grassroots poll on the Conservative Home website, for those of your viewers who know that, their favourite, the bookies' favourite to be leader of the Conservative Party. I chose to say no to all of that, to join and be one of a team of people working under a very strong leader in Nigel Farage. You don't do that if you're motivated by personal ambition. What is my ambition? It's for the country. Yes, I do want to be part of a team that is going to fix this country. I am excited to be part of that team. I'm determined to make it a success because I love this country. I'm proud to represent the people I do in Newark. I don't want to see their lives as challenging as they are today, and I want to play my part in making sure we turn the country around.
Robert Jenrick there talking to Laura Kunsberg, who interviewed him actually on the day after he joined Reform on Friday, and then they ran that out on Saturday. And, you know, lots of people have got plenty of good things to say about Robert Jenrick, lots of people have got plenty of bad things to say about Robert Jenrick. At the end of the day, I think, as I said this last Friday, Reform are going to be much better off with Jenrick in the party than they were before he joined them. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Lots and lots of you getting in touch about the NHS. One health matter to mention, actually, is my mate Piers Morgan. I want to send him my best wishes because he's been ended up in hospital after undergoing surgery on his hip because, unfortunately, he had a fall over the last couple of days. In his social media post, he said, breaking news, he fell like a sack of spuds after misjudging a small step inside a hotel restaurant. He basically said that he's broken his femur and he needs to have hip surgery, which he's undergoing. So he's going to be out of a commission for about 12 weeks. I know a lot of you don't like Piers Morgan, but he's a friend of mine, so I'm wishing him all the best and I hope you get well soon. It is Blue Monday. He's probably feeling particularly blue at the moment. We've also got How Do You Beat Blue Monday? We've got a little poll out on our social media. It's on the chat on the show, and it says this: these are the 4 choices: full English, a pub lunch, a gym session, or walking the dog. At the moment, the winner by a slim margin is walking the dog, 38%, having a full English breakfast, 35%, having a pub lunch, 15%, and going to the gym, 13%. I think we know what the demographic is of this show. I don't think that would be unfortunate at all. Here's one from John, who says, I was speaking to a senior NHS administrator the other day who admitted that they had to create an extra waiting list so the figures could be fudged. I think that's right. Absolutely. Now, let me just run through what we've got in front of us this morning on the front pages of the newspapers, because obviously what we know is that there's all manner of sabres being rattled by the mainstream media about what's happening in Greenland. Donald Trump will be heading off to Davos very shortly, as will Nigel Farage, as will Keir Starmer. A lot of people saying that in Davos at the World Economic Forum there will be conversations had about Greenland, and lots of people think that actually Donald Trump will go there with a view to very, very certainly making a deal which will be beneficial to him, but will also probably be beneficial to Greenland and to Europe. But if you were watching the newspaper headlines this morning, you'd think that anybody writing them wants some kind of a massive tariff war, or worse, an actual war in Western Europe. NATO heading for disaster, says the front page of the Daily Mail. They're basically convinced that there's a crisis in Greenland. It says the UK official warning to as the EU aims an £81 billion trade bazooka at America, which won't work. I mean, Donald Trump will not be intimidated by the European Union. And one of the things that he says that he wants, and has said that he wants, is for the European countries to spend more contributing to NATO. Starmer apparently had a phone call with Donald Trump last night in which, according to Downing Street, Keir Starmer told Donald Trump he was wrong over a threat of tariffs because of Greenland. But of course, if you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you, because I don't think Keir Starmer would ever have the cojones to tell Donald Trump anything like that he was wrong. The Prime Minister warns Trump of a downward spiral, according to the Times. They say Sir Keir Starmer will give an emergency speech in Downing Street today after telling Donald Trump that his tariffs on NATO allies opposing an American takeover of Greenland are wrong. Well, I'm not sure, because quite frankly, we've got a 9:15 press conference which is going on with Donald Trump, and we'll get from him what he's going to be saying to Donald Trump. But I don't think anybody really believes that Keir Starmer is in control of any of this. Do you? I mean, I don't think so anyway. Let's move now, though, to our first guest. I think we've sorted out some of the gremlins that we have. We've got Stephen Morris, workers of the England Union, needs to talk to us about changes to employment rights. And very possibly, Stephen, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. you can tell us what your view is of the situation on tariffs and Greenland, because that's what everybody's talking about this morning. And you don't have to be an expert in international affairs. I just, from your point of view as a representative of English workers, what are you making of it? Not hearing him. No. No. We are plugged in, aren't we? Can't hear it. Well, can anyone else hear him? No. Sorry, we're going to have to come back to you, Stephen. We're not hearing what you're having to say. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a little break, shall we? Because we're at the top of the hour very nearly time for some news with Edward Hughes, or in this case, not with Edward Hughes, but with, in fact, Edward Hughes' Mrs. Hughes, because Edward, as we may see shortly, has been spotted away on holiday this weekend. He decided to take a little trip down south. And there he is. Look, I think that looks a bit like the Canaries to me, or southern Spain, I'm not sure, possibly Mallorca. Cheers, Mike, living it large, says Edward Hughes, obviously spending far too much of our own money. Panda says this, reform can't win. Many say they don't have experienced people to form a government. Well, I'm not sure if that's true. Hi, Mike, says Tommy. This is a super chat. Had a GP's phone appointment last week. The advice I was given was to go private, as I'd wait too long to be seen on the NHS. I think we might have read a couple of those out already. How about this from Patricia, who says, how can they make more appointments? There is only 24 hours in a day. Unless they have employed thousands more doctors, there is no way they can make more appointments. Well, exactly right. And Roll the Bones says, my wife had 5 years of being bounced about by NHS, eventually decided she had a very rare autoimmune disorder. Unfortunately, it was all too late as she died shortly thereafter. I mean, that is awful, isn't it? And Kathy says, I've been waiting 4 years for a dentist appointment at the University Hospital of Wales. I am disabled. My wheelchair could not fit through the previous dentist, and this was the reason for the hospital wait. Unbelievable. And Judge Gresty says, Mike, do you feel that under different leadership, people can change their minds? So MPs are allowed to change their mind, as we all do in life. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think people who are critical of people like Robert Jenrick, I think are wrong. Because at the end of the day, you're allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to have a different view. You know, there are plenty of people in government who believed in, for example, leaving the European Union, but voted to remain in it. You know, there are plenty of politicians who are not to be trusted. There are plenty of politicians who have got different views depending on the time of day. You know, but you've got to be realistic. And I think you've got to not be too puerile or purist about who you expect to be running the country. If you really think that any politician is going to make your life substantially better because of their great purity of thought, I think you've got another thing coming. This one from Gilly, who said 2 years waiting for a gallbladder removal with the UOB Trust, University of Birmingham Trust. I took myself off the list and rely on a diet now to reduce the pain. So many people have had to, you know, botch their own health because they can't see a doctor, because they can't get an appointment. So once again, I'm sorry, for Keir Starmer to make out that he is somehow reducing waiting lists is not just disingenuous, it's a bald-faced lie. And that's what I'm going to say. Keir Starmer is a liar. We'll find out probably coming up in the next hour what his first lie of the day is going to be when he puts it out on Twitter, because he is the Prime Minister of this country, but he cannot lie straight in bread. In bread? No, he can't lie straight in bed either. Right, now, coming up, let's have the news, but not with Howard Hughes. Not even Howard Hughes, it's with Edward Hughes, actually. Howard Hughes, that would be interesting. Let's get it from Edwina Hughes, who is, of course, Edward Hughes' missus.
Hello. Here is the news for Monday, the 19th January, with me, Edwina Hughes. Just before we go on, I'd like to say that I wholly support Eduardo's sudden trip to the Costa del Sol, and I'm not livid at all that he has not come back yet. Prime Minister Keir Starmer brands Donald Trump's threat of 10% tariffs on UK goods, aimed at forcing a Greenland deal, completely wrong. With the AU set to hold urgent talks, the biggest crisis in US-UK relations in years could hit British car makers and exporters hard. In Westminster, Parliament returns with the House of Lords starting its week's business from the 19th to the 23rd, including scrutiny of the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill. Lazy buggers. Economically, Markets brace for more fallout from the tariff threats amid ongoing weak growth warnings for 20 PMI data later this week.
Thanks very much indeed, Ed Weiner, for that. We've got lots more of your messages coming through. Would like a pub of the week slot so the landlord might see some well-earned trade, says Dave. Yeah, that's not bad. Possibly so. Kathy says, don't trust reform, vote advance. DJ Scott says, advance isn't a party. Well, you know, this is the thing. Rupert Lowe has not been allowed to comment on GB News for ages. Let's see the real progress work he's doing as an independent. Tricia says, I need spinal surgery, but the consultant I saw privately said waiting on the NHS 2 years. I also waited 2 years for cataract surgery on one eye and now have to wait another 2 years for the other. So that's 6 years altogether waiting for 3 operations. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. It is totally and utterly ridiculous, isn't it? Now, don't forget, here we are with Blue Monday. We've got the poll out there for you. You can tell us exactly what you do to make Blue Monday better for yourselves. I personally don't feel any kind of blues on any Monday of any year because I'm generally an optimistic kind of individual. How do you beat Blue Monday? Do you get a full English? Do you get a pub lunch? Do you get a gym session? Or do you walk the dog? At the moment, walking the dog is very much the winner. We will get to more of our guests as we do over the course of the next hour. We're here, of course, until 9 o'clock every single weekday. And then coming up after 9 o'clock, we've got an after show today with Mr. Pothole, who's going to be telling us about how the state of the nation's roads is, because, of course, we had National Pothole Day last week. So we'll be able to keep an eye on whether things are actually improving. Because let's not forget, do you remember when Keir Starmer went to, I think it was a branch of Halfords, a couple of years ago, or early last year, where he embarrassed himself by talking to a couple of the characters in Halfords, talking about the damage that gets done to cars when they go in and out of potholes. It really is quite a ridiculous state of affairs. Let's have a quick look through the morning papers as well. The news list right now that I have is all about NATO and Greenland. NATO heading for disaster, says the Daily Mail. UK's official warning as the European Union aims an £81 billion trade bazooka at America. Prime Minister warns Trump of downward spiral, says the front page headline on The Times. This is all about tariffs. Obviously, Trump's Greenland blackmail is the Daily Mirror. You know, they hate Donald Trump probably more than any newspaper that's out there. Trade war looms with America, says the I newspaper. And the Daily Express says fears Trump's tariffs will rip NATO apart. You know, I don't think anyone in their right mind wants to see NATO being ripped apart. I don't think America wants to see it happening. And I was actually listening last night to somebody talking on one of the other channels, right? One of the more mainstream channels saying, well, the thing is that Britain will have to think about different allies, and the European nations will have to think about different allies if America is no longer part of what we call NATO. Well, exactly which other allies are Europe going to align with? Are they going to align with China? Going to align with Russia? You can't align with anybody else. There isn't anybody else. America is purely and simply the only place to go, right? It's ridiculous. You cannot expect to align with any other superpower. I'll tell you why not. Because there simply isn't one. The Financial Times, which is about as left-wing of a newspaper as you can get, I've got a headline that says the European Union is primed with 93 billion euros worth of tariffs on Donald Trump. But again, the bottom line is Donald Trump is not interested in whether or not Europe tries to put tariffs on him because, as he says, there are very few goods that America sells to the European Union. One of the big bugbears that he had last year when he imposed a load of tariffs around about April on cars in particular was he said, you know, Americans are buying loads and loads of cars from Europe. They buy Mercedes, they buy BMWs, they buy Ferraris, they buy Maseratis, they buy BMWs and Audis. And they buy Jaguar Land Rover cars, and they buy Minis, and they buy all sorts of British-made cars, Aston Martins, Bentleys, Rolls-Royces. But nobody in Europe actually buys proper car, you know, American cars. Really, they really don't. Morning Mike says, Mr. Woodward, after the generic announcement, the reform paid membership went up by almost 1,000 within around 24 hours. That says it all for me. Well, that is the thing. You know, at the bottom line, of course, it's going to be difficult. Of course, it's going to be problematic. Of course, you know, reform is not going to be everything that everybody wants. But at the end of the day, surely to God, if you really want to get rid of this awful, ghastly, poxy Labour government, and I'm going to say that, then the time has come to find somebody who can actually dislodge them. And it ain't going to be Kemi Badenoch, and it ain't going to be the Tories, quite frankly. And so reform, literally, is the only answer. Here's another opportunity. I think we're going to have another go at trying to get Stephen Morris on, are we? Stephen, let's try again, shall we? How are you? Very good morning to you. Hello, Stephen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
I can hear you now as well. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, interesting times happening at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, really are. Tell us a bit about the Workers of England Union, because some people might not be familiar with it. Tell us who you represent and what you do.
Well, we're a general union, so we represent employees in all industries. We mainly cover England and Wales because we cover employment law of England and Wales, because obviously it's slightly different in Scotland and Northern Ireland. We're completely independent. We don't affiliate to any political party and that. We operate very much like a solicitor's firm, but on trade union regs. So regardless of your, say, postings on Facebook, whether we agree with them or not, our job is to represent you. You know, we believe in free speech. We believe in the person's right to express their views and opinions, whether you find them offensive or not. That's up to you, you know. But that's what we're here for, to represent the employees. And at the moment, obviously, with free speech, with the gender critical debates, digital IDs, employees' basic rights seem to be really under attack. And are we in a democracy? Well, that's very debatable at the moment. We're more under an authoritarian regime. And I know you've been talking about Greenland and that, but Starmer has absolutely destroyed any relationship that the UK had with the US. So where we used to get the nickname of being the US's poodle, I used to think of it as more of the critical friend. They would always consult with us before they did something to get a difference of opinion. But now they just view us as irrelevant, not interested in us. But what that's doing is now pushing Starmer, and we've seen it now with the Brexit, is to push us more into Europe, and he's trying to do more deals and drag us back into the EU, which we all voted, you know, the majority voted against. So there is massive changes going on at the moment.
There really are. And I mean, as far as the Labour government's kind of workers' rights bill is concerned, I mean, that seems to be more about their ability, workers' ability to get sort of basic rights, you know, through the employer. But it doesn't really protect their rights, as you say, about freedom of speech, does it?
No, it doesn't. And some of the things that we don't agree with, as somebody who runs the union and have been run businesses, things like the day one rights from 6 months, taking it to a tribunal. Okay, they brought in the 6 months because that'd be the probationary period. But everybody knows employees tend to be good during the probationary period. My view would have been the 1 year. You know, so you've got the 6 month probation, and then you've got 6 months where they seem to bed in, and that's where you gauge what the person's like. The 2 year was certainly too long. But these cases now, as we've seen with the jury service, where they say there's a backlog, and we know there's not because they just got empty courtrooms, the tribunal service from ACAS has now been extended to a 12-week process. And then you've got the delays of getting to an employment tribunal. So you're talking a couple of years down the line where employees are affected. So although there's some aspects of the workers' bill that is good, there's other aspects which are actually not very good at all. And if you look, we always talk about being in democracy, but you can have a minority, as we have at the moment. We have a government that's voted in by the minority of people. So you can have people going on strike with a minority of vote. They can drag out the majority. Just some who may not vote. You know, it's not a 50% like anymore. That's all disappearing, which I think is completely wrong. To me, you've got to have at least 50% of the membership vote before you go on strike.
Yeah.
And
Workers of England Union, of course, he's going to talk to us some more about workers' rights. We just lost him there for a second. We'll get him back in a moment. I'll tell you what, Blue Monday's starting to make me a bit red because Blue Monday's playing us a pretty nasty card. There's a lot of glitches today. For some reason, sometimes that just happens. It's just what we have to put up with. Once again, we've got lots and lots of good news to bring you. Sharon Davis is going to join us coming up in a little while. She's going to talk about a big decision that was made over the weekend, which was a huge victory for women in this country. In fact, I think Sharon is actually here now. I'm not sure if we can get back to Stephen Morris a little bit later on, but I'll tell you what, Workers of England Union Good luck to you. A very, very good organisation and a decent man as well, talking about how it's not just about employment rights, it's not just about having the right not to be fined, but it's also about the right to have freedom of speech wherever it is that you work. And there's no point in having the ability to do a job and get paid a good wage for it. But if you're going to get fired because of something you say that somebody doesn't like, then what's the point of having workers' rights in the first place? So we'll be using Stephen Morris again very soon. We'll come back to him very soon as well. Let's talk now, though, to Sharon Davis, a woman who I described earlier as a magnificent sporting superstar, of course, from her days as a swimmer, but now also a magnificent supporter of women's rights and a campaigner, in fact, over the course of the last couple of years. Sharon, great to see you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you. What a busy day. Well, it's always a busy day in politics, isn't it, the world at the moment?
Well, it doesn't seem to ever be quiet anymore, does it? I mean, people used to say to me when I was at Talk, when was the last time you had a quiet week? And I was like, well, we haven't had one. And since we started this show 2 weeks ago, it's just been non-stop, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. I love the fact you've got your Union Jack, and it's right near my Union Jack. So look at that.
Yes, there's a bit of sort of coercion going on there. Let's talk about what happened over the last couple of days, because I mean you've obviously been following this case massively, and it's an ongoing fight, isn't it, for women like yourself? I think you're winning. I mean, it seems to me that there's more and more good decisions being made than there are bad ones. But tell us about why you're celebrating today.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the NHS is our biggest problem here. We're looking at the Darlington nurses who obviously won their case, which was fantastic. This is all about forcing, women to have to get undressed in the presence of men. And, we've also got the Andy Peggy case, which we partially won, but that's now on appeal. And we've got another case which will actually be coming up tomorrow, which is Jennifer Melley, who, was a nurse of 12 years. She was being called the N-word by a convicted paedophile who'd been brought in from prison. She referred to him as Mr. when speaking to the doctor, which is extremely relevant, right? Because this person is biologically male, and now she's been suspended from her job. The NHS is in an absolute mess with regards to this and applying the equality.
She's just muted.
Could sort this out by releasing, the guidance, which she's been sat on now for 3 months. There is absolutely no excuse for this whatsoever. The law was made very, very clear last April. That in the Equality Act, sex is biological sex, and women deserve protection in their private spaces, in their sports, in their shortlists, in anywhere where sex is relevant, and it's just not being applied.
No. And one of the things that we've talked about many times before is that this was all meant to have been sorted out, was it not, by the Supreme Court ruling, which even Keir Starmer actually accepted, to say that, you can only be a woman in law if you were born a biological woman. So how is the NHS and some other ordinary organisations and some other public organisations able to kind of disobey the law effectively?
Yeah, well, I mean, partly because this is down to Stonewall, to be very honest. They misrepresented the law for many, many years. And I know this from sport because I know exactly what they were telling sport. And I'm sure this is what they were telling business. I'm sure this is what they were telling, the NHS. And in certain organisations like the NSS, where, or the civil service, where we've got very, very strong activist groups, they've put this law in place which doesn't exist. They've removed the rights of women, dignity, to fair sport, to privacy. I mean, what an insane world are we living in where women are told, nurses are told that you have to get undressed in front of any male who decides that he's going to identify as a female. I mean, there's just no sense to this policy whatsoever. There is no reason why we can't create third spaces. It's not beyond the wit of man to actually do that. But actually what's more important really is these people are still a subset of males. So therefore we need to make male space safe for non-conforming males, because that's what they still are, non-conforming males. And I will never understand how we've got to this place and how it is so difficult for women to grapple back and get the law applied. And the only way that we are getting the law applied at the moment is for all these wonderful women, to take on 2 and 3 year battles at huge expense, which is being crowdfunded, whilst people like the NHS are using taxpayers' money to fight them to not apply the law. And it's an insane position.
It is. And also, for anyone who's ever had difficulties at work, even if it's something small and, you come in and every morning there's somebody who doesn't get on with you and there's people kind of, looking at you funny and, it's very difficult to be in a workplace, albeit a small one, never mind a big one like a hospital or an NHS clinic. It's really stressful for people. And for these Darlington nurses, it must have been dreadful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we know from said in court, a couple of those nurses had extreme abuse histories, and they had to retell that history, the things that they had to go through, the trauma, and the fact that they had a male voice in their changing rooms. They didn't know who that male voice belonged to. Then when they found out who that male voice was, he was standing there watching them. Then he was asking them why they weren't getting changed. One of the ladies ended up having to remove herself. Another one was due to have a gynecological operation. And the NHS deliberately moved this trans-identifying male onto the team that were involved in this operation. I mean, it was almost like a form of persecution, which is actually what they've been found guilty of. They've been found guilty of harassment. So I hope they are made to pay, but it really is the job of this government, Bridget Phillipson, Keir Starmer and Wes Streeting, who's supposed to be in charge of the NHS, to sort this out.
Yes. I mean, the trouble with this government is that they're not very open, one, and they're also quite good at misleading people, and three, they rather like to say things which aren't true. I mean, only at the weekend, Keir Starmer put out a tweet saying, we've had the biggest drop in waiting lists for the NHS in 2 years. Something like 67,000 people have fallen off the list. Well, as I found out, as I put a tweet out, they haven't fallen off the list. They've either died or they've gone private. It's not a question of reducing the numbers. They're not getting more efficient. If anything, they're spending too much time on stuff like this and about trans rights than they are on actually fixing people's health.
I think I was reading something in the Sunday papers yesterday about us being second to bottom with regards to cancer diagnosis and support and help. I mean, yes, our NHS is in a total mess. The difficulty is it's really not fit for purpose anymore.
No.
I mean, it was fit for purpose after the Second World War, something we can be extremely proud of, the fact that we created the NHS. But if you look at services across the world, there isn't anything like the NHS anywhere else, because ultimately it's, in a big country, it's impossible to actually finance. So I think we have to potentially look at, places like France. How does their system work? How do they make it work? It's a bottomless pit. We also aren't running it very efficiently, as we know, and, Unison, who is supposed to be the nurses' union, didn't even stand by their nurses.
And that is the problem, isn't it?
And that's heartbreaking, right? That's 70% of the people that pay into Unison, I think, are females, and they're not protecting females. Right. If I was a nurse, I would not be giving them any money. I really wouldn't. I would be going elsewhere.
But is that because the union is ideologically captured, and the union, at the end of the day, no matter what the law says, will always believe that trans rights are more important than women's rights?
Yeah, absolutely. And why would you pay into that if you're a woman? Why are you going to pay into the fact that they're going to allow any man that identifies as a female into your changing space?
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary. I mean, we know that women, will purposely walk underneath lights. I know in sport that women start running in winter when it gets dark.
Yeah.
People carry keys. My daughter works at a charity which people can call, when they leave work or when they leave an event in the evening to make sure that someone knows that they left and that they arrived. Women have learned to do that. It's just something that's innate and that we grow up with. No woman wants to be trapped in a confined space where they're going to go to the bathroom with some, 6'4" person who's wearing high heels and identifying as a female. It's scary, so we're throwing all of the things that women have learned to do to protect us under the bus. And the statistics will show us that trans-identifying males are no less likely to commit crimes of the sexual nature than men. So we created separate changing rooms and separate toilets because of those reasons, to protect females. Then why would we allow a group of men in there where the statistics are no different?
No, exactly. And looking at your Twitter feed, Sharon, I mean, there's lots of parts of the country and other parts of Wales, probably Scotland, of course, as well, where this is all still going on, So unless it's highlighted by a particular, uprising or by a particular lawyer or by you, nobody gets to know this is going on.
Yeah, unless we have court cases, unless there's some brave women that can come forward. But I mean, almost the process is the punishment. And so that's why an awful lot of women just put up with it. Right. And in sport, what we find is that people just give up. So instead of women, going and facing males in sport, they just stop going. Right. If they think there's going to be a male in their changing room, they just stop going to their fitness class. So this is not a policy of inclusion. This is the absolute opposite. It's a policy of exclusion of women in women's spaces.
And while there's been some movement in a good way in sort of elite level sport, I know one of the things that you always say is that in the lower levels, the lower echelons, like in schools and colleges and places where it's not elite level, but it's still, you know, serious level, that's not the case.
Yeah, well, it's serious for everyone that plays sport, isn't it? You know, just maybe because you're not the world's best doesn't mean to say when you go and have a game of sport that you don't want to win. And also, where does the elite come from if it doesn't, you know, come from the grassroots? So if we destroy the grassroots, we're not going to get the elite. So what an awful lot of these cowardly CEOs have done is protect the elite, which is 1%, by the way, a tiny, tiny proportion, and they've just turned around and thrown the rest of it under the bus. Now, what I don't get is how can you say this woman here is good enough, so she's worthy of fair sport,
Yes.
and this woman over here is not good enough, so therefore she's not worthy of fair sport?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense when it comes to sex discrimination law. So that's definitely something that myself and Tracy Edwards, we created the Women's Sports Union a couple of months ago. That is on our sort of projects this year, is to, you know, say to the CEOs, you can't do this. You're also breaking the law with regards to public liability insurance, you know. So there are lots of ways and lots of plans that we've got to try and make sure that sport is returned to all females or all levels. I think I've told you this before, but one of the most heartbreaking stories that I was told was about an 11-year-old who came home and said to her mum, today the headmaster had created a co-ed sports day. You know, there were no women, no boys and girls. It was just one race because there was an 8-year-old boy that was identifying as a girl. And so the headmaster decided it was inclusive to create one race for everybody. And not a single little girl won a race that day. And so this little girl said to her mum, Mum, what's the point? And that's what we're telling our little girls at the moment. You know, you're just not worthy. And that's a terrible message.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, in terms of the things that are being done which are unlawful, I mean, looking at a piece in Unheard about the Darlington NHS Foundation Trust, the judgment found that County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation had behaved unlawfully in failing to address the nurses' concerns, right? But, you know, what's the punishment for that? Is there any punishment?
Yeah, and as we know, no one seems to take responsibility, whether you're a policeman in the Midlands or whether you're head of, you know, you're trusted at Fife with the Sandy Peggy case. These people are walking away with their pensions. And that is what's extremely wrong at the moment in society. There's no responsibility for people making bad decisions.
Yeah. And that is a dreadful state of affairs. And what reaction do you get from the Labour sort of apparatchiks that you talk to, if you talk to anyone in cabinet? You know, because I always get the sense from Labour that, you know, they're offering a bit of lip service, you know, like Keir Starmer was sort of talking through gritted teeth when he finally admitted that, you know, a woman can only be a woman if the Supreme Court tells you it's a woman and that it has to be a biological woman. But you know that in his heart of hearts, he doesn't really believe that, because you know that he's got people behind him, you know, saying that he's a disgrace for admitting that, and that what about trans rights and all the rest of it. So, I mean, do you have any faith, really, I suppose is the question, in this government doing away with all of this nonsense once and for all?
It's such a good question, Mike. To be honest with you, no, I don't. I think that they are scared of their backbenchers. There is a very, very loud activist group of backbenchers in the Labour Party who, you know, whether that's talking about welfare cuts or whether that's talking about LGBT rights, or, you know, they're just running scared of them. So they're not being able to apply the law as they should be able to do. I mean, I speak to the lovely Rosie Duffield quite often, who's obviously ex-Labour, you know, and now independent because she stood up for women's rights. Still never been apologised to, you know, ever. And she was, you know, taken out of the Labour Party and sort of put in the naughty corner. Yeah, I'm the most disappointed in women as well in Labour. You know, when they say they're supposed to be for the working man and women, they're actually working against the working man and women at the moment. The people, you know, who really need them to stand up and fight for them, as well as obviously small businesses and farmers, you know, and all the rest of us who feel incredibly let down. I mean, tomorrow, funnily enough, I go into the House of Lords, so that's I start work tomorrow.
Of course. I'd completely forgotten about that. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. It's all a little bit surreal at the moment. It's going to be a very big learning curve, but hopefully it just means that I can, you know, help even more and put even more pressure and sort of bring the spotlight even more on the people that are not doing their job.
And so does this mean that's the day that you get to be welcomed in and you go through that whole process, you get the ermine put on your shoulders and all of that? That's going to be quite an exciting day.
That happens tomorrow, yes. And I get a little tea party afterwards. My family and friends are able to come in and watch, and then I go to work straight away. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the great thing about the House of Lords, and I know that there are plenty of people out there who think it doesn't do the job that it should. I actually think the House of Lords now is more important than ever, because when you've got the government of the day with such a big majority trying to do things that the majority of people in this country don't want them to do. I mean, look at all the U-turns. I mean, we've got a story this morning saying £8.2 billion has cost us as the taxpayers because of all the U-turns they've made. And you guys now in the House of Lords will have an even more important role to play, I think, in stopping them from doing anything ridiculous.
Yeah, take the euthanasia bill. You know, it was put together really, really badly, and it's the House of Lords that had tried to form it into some sort of cohesive bill that's safe, and it's still not really safe.
Yeah.
You know, and if the House of Lords hadn't been there, we would have had one absolutely horrendous, dangerous, new law. So I think people need to understand what the House of Lords does, really. It tries to take bad laws that come from the House of Commons, and there's lots of those that are coming out of the House of Commons at the moment, and they try to manipulate it, change it, repair it, put safeguards in there, really, and then send it back to the House of Commons to sort of, rubber stamp. So, yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think at the moment the House of Lords is the only thing that's often standing between disaster and some better policies.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, listen, have a brilliant day tomorrow, because that's really that is something to celebrate. Honestly, Sharon Davis in the House of Lords. It shows you that not everything's gone wrong with this country, because finally.
And can I say that's down to Kemi? That's down to Kemi. And the reason I said yes is because it was Kemi that asked me, and I do have great faith in her. You know, during all the years before when they were in the government, I was having lots of conversations with her, and she was trying so hard to get things through.
Yeah.
It was the Conservative government in lots of places that were stopping her. But now that she's in charge, hopefully things will be different. So I do have faith in her.
Okay. And what do we call you now? Baroness Sharon?
Yeah. I'm Baroness Davies of Devonport. And the reason I chose that was because I was born in Devonport.
Right.
My family have been Navy for goodness knows how many years. And I thought that it kept my feet firmly on the ground to be, associated with the services that I'm extremely proud of. So.
That's brilliant. Baroness Davies of Devonport has a lovely ring to it. Brilliant to see you. Thank you so much for talking to us, Sharon. Common sense.
Welcome.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Sharon Davis. Baron Davis of Devonport. What a brilliant idea that is. Well done. Yeah, we're going to have a round of applause. Thank you. Sensible, one of the most sensible women in Britain. And like I say, for those of you who want to do away with the House of Lords, she's the very good reason why we shouldn't be doing that right now, because you know what old Keith Stalin would love to do is to do away with the House of Lords so that he wouldn't have anybody stopping him from getting on with ruining this country and wrecking it from John O'Groats to Land's End. So Baroness Davis of Devonport has got my vote, and of course I know that she's got your backing as well. There's been a lot of super chats coming in, very, very nice ones for Sharon. What a fantastic woman. She fights for women as indeed only she can. Has Sharon met Riley Gaines, says Canastri? I don't know. It's a good question. I'll tell you what I have found, though, because we do Heron of the Day. We've had a few pedants of the day as well. And we have had a few gremlins today for Blue Monday, so I apologise to anybody who hasn't been able to hear things from time to time. But always, and I know that this is something that many of you know how to do already, but if the sound gets a bit iffy, one of the best things to do is to just refresh the YouTube screen, and it tends to come back. It's coming up to 8:30 though. Let's go back to Heron of the Day if we can, because I've found out who sent this. This comes from the Norfolk fan club of the show. Martin and Lara saw this heron flying over Homersfield Lake last week. The local fishermen have called it Mike Graham, and they asked me to forward it to the show. Isn't that lovely? Martin and Lara from the Norfolk fan club of the Mike Graham Show. Thank you very much indeed. And that is a beautiful looking beast, even better looking than me, it would seem. It is Blue Monday. We've been asking you what it is that you do to make the blues go away. I don't have any blues, but we did have some blue drink last weekend, which we'll be revisiting, actually, because one of the things that we're going to do every Friday now is bring Chris Walkie and his fantastic attitude to British sparkling wine, English sparkling wine and English wines and all of that. We're having a drinks special every single Friday on the show around about 9:45. A couple of breaking news stories for you. According to the ticker that's going underneath the page there, lots and lots of people very much focused on Greenland today. The front page is very much all about that. NATO now heading for disaster in Trump row. It says on the front page of the Daily Mail, Greenland in crisis. It also says Prime Minister warns of downward spiral in US tariffs row. That's on the front page of the Times. The EU primes a 93 billion euro tariff on Trump, says the Financial Times, the most left-wing newspaper newspaper in the whole of Europe, and trade war looms with America, says the I newspaper. We've got more news for you, of course, but it's not just our news, it's your news. But it's not, unfortunately, this year, or this week rather, from Edward Hughes. Guess why? Edward Hughes is on holiday, believe it or not, on Blue Monday. He's decided to get rid of his blues by heading to southern climes, where he was spotted drinking a cocktail and once again wearing no shirt. Check it out. Have we got him? Oh, he's gone. I mean, this man is becoming slightly irritating, I have to say. Why don't we get Mrs. Hughes instead, Edwina, to read the news? Has she got on strike now as well? She's on strike now as well. Unbelievable. I'll tell you what, it's starting to pee me right off the way that Blue Monday has suddenly descended upon the state of affairs here at the Mike Graham Show. For some reason, more gremlins than ever. But don't worry, we'll keep them coming. We'll keep them going. Are we able now to go back to our previous guest as well? No, we're not. We have got voice notes coming through, though, apparently. So let's see if we can have a listen to those. The last time we tried it, I couldn't actually hear them, so I'll keep quiet. But if you go to www.speakpipe.com/voice notes, have a listen to this.
Hi, Mike. It's Judith here from Radlett on my morning walk with Sadie the Poochon. I just wanted to say hello and been watching your show since it started. Keep up the excellent, excellent work. We're enjoying it. Well, I am. I'm not sure if Sadie is, but I'm sure she is. And look forward to seeing you every day. We're off to Tel Aviv, and I'll be following you there for the next 9 to 10 days.
That was a voice note, but I couldn't hear it either. So don't worry. Lack of voice note.
To Tel Aviv.
Yeah. Who is it?
Judith went to Tel Aviv.
Oh, Judith. Is that Judith from West Yorkshire?
Yeah.
Is it? Is Judith back? That's brilliant. Anyway, listen, we will fix all of these things up as we go. I'm just delighted to know that so many of you are now watching. Blame Starmer on the gremlins, says Swordfish. Yeah, well, listen, I've got my theories about Keir Starmer and what happened to me the last time I had a job. Come on, bring the gorgeous Hugh back. We love you. Hi, Judith. Stay safe, says Mary Ann. Pooch is going to be in the doghouse, says Mr. H. Listen, Pooch is doing his best. Don't worry about that. Jan O'Connor. Oh, Lord. It's not a good show this morning. Keep buggering on. It's got to be better tomorrow. Listen, occasionally you do have to move things around. And whenever you add something in, sometimes something else falls off the other end. I'm not going to defend it. It's just one of those things. It just happens from time to time. But we've got lots more to do. Capricorn Moon says, Azura Fox, that is wonderful news. I think that's the Judith we're talking about. One from the Pixie says, bought a bottle of the Blue champagne. It is great, Mike. It costs 42 quid. Blimey. Well, it should be good for that price. Yes, Sharon was with Riley Gaines last week at the US Supreme Court in Washington. Bella says that's not Judith from West Yorkshire. Ton Wobble says that is Judith, but not from Yorkshire. Yeah, very possibly so. Great sound from Judith, says man from Kernow. Can you turn that down? Can you turn that up? Jesus, you can't please everyone, says Rogue. I know this is the trouble, isn't it? I mean, here's a couple of stories, though, that I've got for you, because quite frankly, this will absolutely wind you up. There's a show, we've got this show and we've been putting it together for the last 2 weeks. We're on week 3 now. But on page 11 of the Daily Mail today, here's a story that will wind you up. Exclusive by Martin Bedford. This is a guy called Chris MacDonald, right, who's a Labour MP. Last week we had Oliver Ryan as plank of the day. This time we're going to have Chris MacDonald, who's a Labour MP. He decided, as the industry minister, that he wanted to start some kind of podcast. He thought, why not? Talk to the people who vote for me. Give myself a role as a sort of a fledgling media star. Because the thing about all these MPs, right, is they love the idea of going on social media. They love the idea of going on shows. I mean, funnily enough, at the moment, no Labour government minister or MP will come on my show, which is not a particular surprise because they didn't used to come on my old show either. We are working to get a few Conservative Party MPs on and a few Reform Party MPs on. But at the moment, it's proving a bit more difficult than it should. Nigel Evans will be coming on this week. He's, of course, the former Deputy Speaker of the House. He used to be Lindsay Hoyle's deputy, and he will be coming on to talk to us this very week, Nigel Evans. But, in a funny sort of way, many of them are they're a bit gun shy. They don't like to come on. And I actually don't mind because one of the things I like like about this show is we don't need politicians. I mean, you can go to any number of other outlets and listen to politicians banging on all day for as long as you like about how brilliant they are, about how good they're going to do, about how they're changing your lives for the better. But let's face it, what's the point of getting Keir Starmer on this show, for example, to listen to him telling me a whole load of lies about what Labour are doing? To wit, the fact that they're going to threaten Donald Trump, the fact that, oh yes, I told Donald Trump he was wrong last night. Did you? Did you really? Sure that wasn't in your dreams, Sir Keir? Then he's going to tell us some more lies about how the NHS waiting lists have come down. What's the point? If we get, Keir Starmer coming on and telling us the truth, now that would be a story. But how about this guy, right? The Industry Minister, Chris MacDonald, decided he wanted to start up a podcast. So he decided to go and buy some microphones and wanted to buy some insulation for his recording session so that he could make it sound as professional as possible. He's got a show apparently called Full Steam Ahead, which is a bit of a misnomer, to be honest. But here's a guy who thinks that what he should do when he starts up a business is to charge the taxpayer for it. So guess what he did? He used his expenses in Parliament to charge £500 on microphones to you and I. So not only am I starting up my own business, not only am I starting up my own channel, not only am I paying for my own channel, not only am I paying tax on my own channel, but here we are in a situation where actually the MPs of this country are starting up their own channels and their own podcasts and charging me for the privilege. Surely there's got to be something wrong with that, hasn't there? Absolutely and utterly ridiculous and unbelievable. We should do Plank of the Day as well, shouldn't we? Which we haven't done yet, because we need to get that out of the way before we get to Ralph Schulhammer, who's going to talk to us about the latest situation in Denmark and Greenland, because believe it or not, it is the return this week of the ghastly Harry. The Herbert, formerly known as Prince, as I like to call him, is coming back to Britain. We believe he flew in on Friday. Guess why? Yet another court case. Yes, this time it's against Associated Newspapers, and it's a court case that's likely to cost something like £40 million, okay? Basically, Associated Newspapers has been accused of hacking mobile phone voicemails, tapping landline calls, and blagging personal information about a whole variety of celebrities, including Harry. And Harry apparently is going to be one of the first to give evidence this week when he takes his place in the witness box of Court 76. He's joined in his claim by complainants including Sir Elton John, his husband David Furnish, Sadie Frost, and Baroness Lawrence of Clarendon, whose son Stephen was murdered in 1993. Associated Newspapers denies all the allegations, previously describing them as lurid and preposterous. One of the things, of course, that won't happen is that Harry won't see any members of his family. In fact, they're so desperate not to see him, they've all gone to Scotland. King Charles is in Scotland, might be coming back in a couple of days' time. Even the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, aren't going to be around either. It's absolutely unbelievable. So here he is. Harry's back in London, right? Travelled to the UK without his wife, who posted a video of the couple on social media at the weekend showing them dancing. Somebody actually put their dancing video to a Benny Hill soundtrack, which was really quite funny. But basically, Harry continues to be a thorn in the side of his own family, continues to be a thorn in the side of the taxpayer, continues to be a thorn in the side of every right-thinking person who thinks that he should just get on with his life and stop suing the hell out of everybody and blaming everybody else for his crappy life. It's not our fault you decided to marry some narcissistic maniac. It's not our fault you decided to move to California, where it's one of the most dangerous places in the world. It's not our fault that you decided to leave the royal family. And it's not our fault that you're such a mug. It's your own fault. So I'm afraid Harry, the Herbert formerly known as Prince, is my plank of the day.
Hello, it's plank of the day time.
Now, coming up, we're going to speak to Ralph Schulhammer, who's got plenty to say, I'm sure, about the state of Europe. Europe as a continent is now trying to sort of become a very much more together organisation. We know that Keir Starmer wants to be more a part of Europe than he wants to be part of anything else. The trouble with Keir Starmer, of course, is that he's a liar. And in fact, I might check in a minute and see whether or not he's posted anything on his Liars special. I thought Harry, I just was about to read that, it's disappeared. Can we get that back for a second? I thought Harry and Meghan went to the US for peace from the Paps. They hear more about them than ever, unfortunately, says Lynn. Well, this is the trouble. They said they had to leave the UK to get out of the public eye, and all they've done is basically throw themselves back into it. Jennifer says that picture is fake, he doesn't have that much hair. I presume that's one about Harry that you're talking about there. I don't know what the straight answer to that is, but, you know, Ginger Boy doesn't look any better the older he gets, and he just looks more and more stupid. And probably, once again, he will be spending bucket loads of money on lawyers, and he'll probably lose again. Let's have a look at Keir Starmer's Twitter feed this morning. Has he put anything out? Oh, he hasn't put anything out. All he's got is one from yesterday, which was put out at, let's see, what time? 8:15 last night. Our position on Greenland is very clear. It is part of the Kingdom of Denmark and its future is a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes. We have also made clear that Arctic security matters for the whole of NATO and allies should all do more together to address the threat from Russia across different parts of the Arctic. Applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong. We will, of course, be pursuing this directly with the US administration. Yeah, well, that's all very well, Starmer, but what about the Kingdom of Denmark and its future being a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes? What about the Chagos Islanders? What about that? Andy says this, Mike, beat Blue Monday by changing your bloody blue sign to a lovely warm orange. It changes the whole feel of your studio and looks much more professional and stylish. Well, I like the blue, actually, but if you want to change it, we can. We can change it to orange. How about that? You want to change it to orange? Does that make you feel warmer and happier? See how I did that? See, even I can be taught how to do basic kind of, you know, technical changes to the studio, even as we speak. I'm quite happy with that. Yeah, I mean, how is it that Starmer can write about the safety and security of the Arctic without mentioning China? I'll tell you how, because he's going to China later on this month and he doesn't want to upset them. And I'll tell you why, because he's giving the Chinese a free embassy in the heart of London between Canary Wharf and the City of London, two very, very important hubs for financial security. He's giving the Chinese, apparently, the ability to sit there in the middle of all of those very, very highly secure and sensitive fibre optic lines which run underneath the streets of London. And he's going to give them access to a huge, huge underground network of rooms, of tunnels, of torture areas, of all sorts of terrible things that the Chinese can get themselves involved in. And so he doesn't mention China, Keir Starmer, does he? Because he knows that basically he has got absolutely no control over what China does. He also knows that he has no control over what Donald Trump does. And he also knows, by the way, that whatever he wants to paint himself as the saviour of international sort of diplomacy, Keir Starmer is a dud. Trump knows he's a dud. Emmanuel Macron even knows he's a dud. The Chinese know he's easily malleable. He's pointless. The whole image of Keir Starmer is one of relentless mediocrity, I'm afraid. Ralph Schulhammer coming up very shortly. Have a look at this, though, for a flavour of what you can expect from the Mike Graham Show coming up. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. So, we finally got it off the ground. We've been going for a little while now, and we're all delighted with the reception, with the audience, and with what you're saying to us about how much you're enjoying the Mike Graham Show every single weekday morning from 7 until 9 a.m. We've got Plank of the Day, which we bring in, of course. We're doing polls every day now as well. We've also got Pedant of the Day, which is awarded to anybody who comes in and gives us a bit of criticism for something they don't like, whether it's one of the bricks is out of place, whether they don't like the colour of the sign behind me, whether the Union Jack's a bit flaccid. You know, you never know what the complaint is, but you could be a winner of Pedant of the Week. Also, of course, we've got Heron of the Day as well, which is when you send in your lovely, beautiful pictures of those amazing birds, the herons, which bring us so much good luck and offer us so much goodwill. And don't forget, of course, as well, that we're still doing Plank of the Week. That goes out every Friday at 7 o'clock in the evening. And, of course, every single weekday, we're doing a Substack after show for people who subscribe to our Substack. So if you want to stream the breakfast show live on Substack without any ads, you can do that, sign up and subscribe. You can also watch it on YouTube, of course, with ads or without ads on YouTube Premium. And the after show every single day also goes out on YouTube later on in the week. So we've got an awful lot going on. We obviously always want to hear from you, whatever your criticisms are, whatever your encouragements are, anything you think we should be doing that we're not doing. We're working on getting voice notes incorporated into the show. We're working on getting calls incorporated into the show as well. We're building a station here. We're building a channel which we hope you will enjoy for a very long time. And I'm delighted that you're on the journey with us. We are having a fabulous time working as independent producers of media. And who knows where it all goes, because what we can tell you is that just last month, YouTube overtook the BBC as the biggest source of news and information for the people of Great Britain. And that's what we're part of. So we'll see you soon. Have a great day. This is The Mike Graham Show. And that, of course, is the Mike Graham Show in a nutshell. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff as well. As I said earlier today, we started voice notes. We managed to get a couple of them on the air today. You can actually record them and send them in to us overnight if you like. You don't absolutely have to do it even on the live show. You can do it that way. But as we go forward, we'll obviously collect more and more of your voice notes. And so please do get involved with that and do tell us exactly what you think. Try and keep them to under 30 seconds, though, in order for us to play them out properly. And I'll tell you exactly where you send them. You send them to speakpipe.com /voice notes. And as I say, leave it there and we'll pick them up at all different times. And if you can do them, even maybe do them overnight, and we'll pick them up in the morning and schedule them in for the show. Just before we speak to Ralph Schulhammer about the latest news from Greenland and what's likely to happen today at Keir Starmer's press conference at 9:15, which is going to set out sort of Britain's stall, if you like, as to where we go with all these tariffs that Donald Trump is threatening. Donald Trump has said overnight, basically, that we are going to go ahead with the tariff plan. And of course, if you remember rightly, last year when Keir Starmer said, you know, tariffs against European countries are going to be terribly damaging, it's going to ruin the economy. It didn't actually ruin the economy. In fact, only a couple of weeks ago, economists were saying the tariff damage that was done or was supposedly going to be done by Donald Trump actually never happened. Yes, exports from the UK to the US were down by around about 7%, but that was partially due to Jaguar Land Rover's problems in other areas, the fact that they got hacked, the fact that they weren't able to actually get anything over to America. They didn't manufacture any cars at all for about 3 months. But let's look at what has happened over the course of the last 24 hours, just before we talk to Ralph Schulhammer, because domestically speaking, you know, this nation of ours has never been more alight. You know, we saw it last week, Robert Jenrick defecting, Andrew Rossendale has now defected. So overnight, it now turns out that Reform, we've got 7 MPs. Let's have a look at what Lisa Nandy, who is, of course, the Media and Culture Secretary, had to say about Reform.
You scolded me for asking you to reveal private discussions. Well, this is a straightforward discussion. Would you actually use the word fascist about a Nigel Farage-led government or not?
Well, look, I'm not sure that labels are particularly helpful, but like I said, I've got a lot of experience of dealing.
You're not saying no.
Living with the consequence. Well, I've got a lot of experience of living with the consequences of othering and people who are trying to divide us from one another. And I guess I would just say that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, in my experience, it usually is a duck.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa Nandy there talking about othering, which is such a useless word. It's not even a real word. It's invented by lefties to try and make out that something is bad without actually defining what that something is. Ridiculous. Have a look at Robert Jenrick. This is what he said about why he's decided to join Reform.
It's time for the truth. Those that came before us built a great country, but we are set to lose it. These people run Britain as if they hate it. But whilst this government is accelerating our decline, they didn't begin it. The Conservative Party betrayed its voters. They don't have the stomach for the radical change that Britain needs. Nigel was all too often a lone voice of common sense. They laughed at him. Well, they're not laughing now. I'm proud to join the more than 270,000 people who are members of Reform UK, to join this incredible movement, a national movement that will pool Britain's talents, experience and expertise and deliver the real change we need. With Britain on the brink, in real danger, this is what we must do. Britain is broken. Britain needs reform, and reform needs you.
Got to say, it's a pretty impressive promo, that. And, you know, Britain is broken, even though Kemi Badenoch said at the weekend she didn't think it was. We're going to speak to Ralph Schulhammer in 1 second. It is Blue Monday, by the way, so we've changed the sign from blue to red, or pink, or orange, whatever you call it. Maybe it is orange. Here's the choices you've got for clearing yourself up when it comes to Blue Monday. How do you beat it? The blues, full English breakfast, 35%, pub lunch, 15%, gym session, 13%, walk the dog, 38%. How about this one? Invading Greenland. 45%. That's what Donald Trump would like to do. Let's talk to Ralph Shawhammer and find out what he makes of it all. Ralph, very good morning to you.
Good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you too. I mean, the mainstream media getting their knickers in a right old twist about this, you know. Every single time I switch the TV on, somebody's talking about Donald Trump as if he wants to wage the Third World War, that he's going to land some invading force into Greenland. I don't know if you agree with me, but I see Trump here as just doing what he always does, trying to get to a point somewhere over there, but starting somewhere over here. And I don't think he's got any intention of buying Greenland or invading Greenland, but I just think he wants something. We just want to figure out what it is.
No, I think when it comes to buying Greenland, I think he's quite serious. I mean, this is one of the interesting parts about the Trump administration in its second term now, is that I would say in 8 out of 10 cases, when they say something, they actually mean it. So the question, however, is what's the value of Greenland to the United States and what's the value of Greenland to Europe? I find it, to be honest, a little bit disheartening, because I think there is a good case to be made why Greenland should be in one way or another managed by the United States. But couldn't they have done it in, let's say, a quieter, more diplomatic way? Again, there are many things. I always say Donald Trump is everything his fans and his critics say he is.
Yeah.
So good intention, fully agree, but that probably was not the right way to go about it. I find it a little bit weird to open the Financial Times and the Economist when we talk now about, I think it's just talk, but it's out there now, about a full economic war between the United States and Europe. I mean, Mike, you and I, we are staunch defenders of Western civilization. So an inter-civilizational quasi-civil war is something nobody needs. So I have to admit, I get the American intention. The execution is something I have a problem with.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people in the United States who feel the same way, and people who would otherwise have supported Donald Trump doing what he did in Venezuela have all said, you know, listen, that was fine, but this isn't. And, you know, the noises are really getting a bit ridiculous and a little bit. And I guess, you know, it's like having a friend, isn't it, who turns up at parties and is quite outrageous and is very funny. They always go a bit too far. And eventually you have to rein them in. Eventually you have to go, actually, you don't have to agree with everything they do. But this is the trouble now with the nature of our democracy, if you like, and our media coverage of everything. Because it's siloed to such an extent that so many people hate what Donald Trump does, no matter what it is. In a way, the proper criticism of him is less important now because they've criticised everything.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I mean, right there's this famous meme that says if Donald Trump could walk on water, the media would say he cannot swim. Right. And I think that's about accurate. No, you're absolutely right. But you know, Mike, this is the beauty about your show and you know my show, is that we can compliment Trump when he does something that we seem is right, and we can criticize him when we think that there's something that he's doing wrong. And I said, nobody, also your viewers and listeners, I mean, we are not members of a cult, right? There's this I hate this these days, that everything needs to have one causal explanation, and you have to be 100% on either side A or 100% on side B. No, you don't, right? You can say that, you know, there are many reasons why Greenland is interesting. And as I just said with Donald Trump, there are things he does well and there are things he does not do well. This is not like soccer where you say you have to be 100% with your game. Politicians are supposed to be like plumbers. They have a job to do and they shall do their job well. If they do it well, we pay and compliment them. If they do it badly, we criticize them and ideally vote them out of office.
Absolutely. So how do you think this ends then? Because Starmer's going to make a press conference today at 9:15. I don't think he's going to have very much to say. I'm not sure that threatening the US with tariffs of their own is going to be a help for the European Union. He said last year, you know, there's not that much stuff that America sells to Europe, you know, in terms of what goes the other way. For example, the car business, you know, they buy a lot of European cars in America. We don't buy any American cars in Europe really at all. So what is, in your view, the likely sort of position we'll be in, say, in 12 hours from now?
Yeah, I mean, there's this weird debate currently going on online around this issue. Who could hurt whom more? Could the Europeans inflict more pain on the Americans or the Americans on the Europeans? I mean, in a sense, both culturally and economically, Europe and the United States are a little bit like Siamese twins. So if you really want to separate them, there is a risk that either one or both of the patients are going to die. I mean, what is, however, absolutely clear, if Europe wants to escalate, which they hypothetically can, as I always say, it's like Siamese twins. So we can inflict pain in the US, but I think on short term, the US can inflict hypothetically more pain on the Europeans. They can stop LNG deliveries. And don't forget, Mike, I mean, this is what we do right now. Amazon Web Services, the cloud services, software, digital infrastructure, between 85 and 90% come from the US, and they could hypothetically switch that off within 24 hours. So all these debates, Britain holds a lot of US debt and Europe holds all true. As I said, of course, Europe can inflict pain in the US. And we haven't even talked about MasterCard and Visa. So on the short run, like a quick punch, a knockout punch, I think the United States can deliver much quicker. So if they want Greenland, they will end up getting Greenland. But as I said, I think that diplomatically they could have done it differently. That's all I'm saying, right? I think this could have been done much more amicable.
Yeah, but given where we are, as we often say, we are where we are. It may well be that Trump and his administration thought there isn't really any other way of getting this on the table in any meaningful way. And also, Trump only really knows one way to get something done, doesn't he? I mean, he throws a big hand grenade into the middle of the room and waits until the smoke clears, and he walks in and goes, okay, we'll have that.
Yeah, but he has advisors, right? I'm always so surprised. He has all these advisors who talk about civilizational erasure in Europe, that take the big historical view. And again, fair enough. Don't forget that I think about 40% of current US territory was acquired via acquisition. Like they bought Florida, they bought the Louisiana Purchase, they bought Alaska. So this is part and parcel of US foreign policy. But again, if you take the broad historical view, this was done by a very competent political and diplomatic class, the founding fathers and their immediate successors. And as I said, they could achieve all those goals, everything that J.D. Vance wants, everything that Donald Trump wants. I mean, the art of diplomacy, I would say, is to get the other side to voluntarily want what you want as well. And I have to admit, with the exception maybe of Marco Rubio on occasion, they are good. I think they have an interesting geopolitical strategy. If you want, we can go into the details of that. But I think the execution in the diplomatic sense could be better. There, Talleyrand's, Bismarck's, Castlereagh's. I mean, the British, the Austrians, the Germans, we have a long tradition of capable, not at the moment, but historically, of very capable diplomats who accomplished a lot. And I think this, sometimes it's good to open a history book, not just of the American history, but maybe also of European history, and learn a little bit from these 19th century figures. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, very sensible stuff. Ralph, good to talk to you. And we could talk some more about it, but I'm sure we will as the days develop. Ralph Schulhammer there, he's a very sensible man talking to us from the European Consulate, of course, of Austria, because nobody really knows exactly where this is going. JR says, this great show. I have a few heron photos and would like to send one in. How do I do it? Well, you could try sending them probably in the first instance to Twitter, because that's probably the best place to do it, or on Facebook. If you go to my Facebook page, which is Mike Graham, or my Twitter page, @IROMG, that's probably the best way to do it, and then we can load them up onto the show, because lots of you have got heron pictures. I haven't seen my heron, actually, for a while. Maybe he'll return after Blue Monday, we shall see. But that pretty much does the show for today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for all of your voice notes. We'll get more voice notes as we go. We'll get better at all of that. We had a few glitches this morning, but this is what happens sometimes on a Monday morning after the systems have been down for a couple of days. Don't forget, we've got Plank of the Week coming up at the weekend. It's out there now. We haven't actually played the promo. Maybe we'll play it during the after show before we get to that, which is with today, Mr. Pothole. Last week it was National Pothole Day. We're going to find out what the state of play is up and down the country. You, by all means, send in your messages to us about what is going on where you live and what the state of the roads is. This will be live on the Substack just after 9 o'clock, and it will be out on YouTube later on in the week. We usually put it out 2 days later. So much more to do, so much more to talk about. Thank you very much indeed for joining in today on Blue Monday. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for taking part. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. And
remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.